What a weekend. A little warm out, but what a great start to the week as well. And I'm going to, Jimmy Cook and Eddie Garrison, ask you guys questions right off the box here, right off the top.
First off, I think it just feels like Indiana weather now.
It does.
I don't think we can go.
It's a little thick, right? So, Jimmy, if you were to go right now to Baskin-Robbins to get yourself a scoop of ice cream to cool off in the hot weather, you would get what kind of ice cream?
Get a little cookies and cream.
Okay. Eddie Garrison?
Mint chocolate chip.
Mint chocolate chip, probably the most common answer people would give, right? Obviously, if you're getting a sundae, vanilla is very popular, so too is chocolate. I would say that cookies and cream in the last 10 to 15 years has certainly emerged, right? That are or chocolate chip cookie dough, very popular flavors.
You?
I'm with Eddie, probably I'd get mint chocolate chip. But here's the thing. There are those flavors of ice cream that everybody's aware, that everybody knows, that if somebody orders them, you go, oh, that's cool. I like that too. And if it's the only thing that they have, you're like, that's cool. But they're not the mainstream. The main flavors would be your mint chocolate, the ones that we just mentioned. But then there are those others. Butter pecan, pistachio, peppermint stick, right? They're good, right? All those, they're good. Today's sports show, and this is what I love about it. This is the time of year, and this is today's show in particular one where the butter pecan, the pistachio, and the peppermint stick take center stage. And the mint chocolate chip and the cookies and cream and the chocolate vanilla swirl, which would be the Pacers, Colts, they take a back seat a little bit. And what are we going to talk about today? Amongst other things, we'll obviously talk those things. But I love the fact that epicentered right now in the sports world, right here in Indianapolis, swimming, boxing, golf yesterday was big. Golf is pretty mainstream, I realize. But, we step aside a little bit today and focus on some major happenings, even nationally speaking, that are based right here in Indianapolis. On this Monday, how are you? My name is Jake Query. You just heard from Jimmy Cook and Eddie Garrison. It is Query and Company here on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. And it was a great weekend. And I want to thank those that, when I was out and about, that came up to say hi. Jordan, for example. We were at King Jug Brewing on Saturday to see The Elect, the best local band in Indy, in my opinion. Beautiful night for it. Absolutely perfect. And Jordan came up, said hi, said I'm a member of the company. Love it. Very flattered by that. Went to Italian Fest on Friday night, which was beautiful. J&V was there. It's great. Had a lot of fun. My buddy Paul Hurley was there. Great weekend. Jimmy, did you do anything fun?
Played some golf on Friday. Saturday, got burgers and stuff ready to go for Sunday for Father's Day, and then celebrated with my in-laws, my father-in-law, and had a great day poolside. Watched a lot of sports, consumed a little bit of the swimming over the weekend with the trials still going on as countless athletes attempt to make Team USA for the next couple of nights at Lucas Oil Stadium. My wife Haley was at Italian Fest. She saw your post later, Jake, so you guys didn't cross paths, but the Cooks were represented at Italian Fest. I was disappointed I didn't get the chance to go out there this year, but always one of my favorite local events. And then you mentioned it. You look at maybe outside or slightly outside of this market's mainstream, and there's all kinds of sports across the board that you could have watched over the weekend. You could have been involved with boxing. You could have been watching the swim trials. You could have been watching the Euros, which have group play going on right now. You could have been in the U.S. Open. There's so many different avenues of sport that were available over the weekend. Eddie Garrison, what about yourself? Anything fun on that weekend plate for you?
Saturday, we had my brother's open house for graduating from Decatur Central High School at my parents'. So that was an all-day affair. And then yesterday was pretty much a recovery day. Went out to breakfast with my family for Father's Day, and then recovered the rest of the day pretty much from Saturday. Watched some college baseball, a lot of college baseball over the weekend, and then some of the Olympic swim trials last night.
I'll tell you, the swim trials.
Oh, Jake, and I watched Fast Times at Ridgemont High for the fourth time.
Did you really?
Yes. It was on TV. I think that was Friday night when I got home from doing updates on Indiana Sports Talk, and couldn't go to sleep. It was on TV. I was like, you know what? I'll turn this on. Spicoli wrecked the car, and I texted you immediately.
You did. You said, my old man's a TV repairman. He's got the ultimate set of tools. I can fix it. Look, Eddie gets this glazed look on his face when he starts talking about Fast Times. It's unbelievable. Like, I've never seen somebody fall in love with something so fast. Wait till you see Shawshank. It'll change your life. The swimming trials are fascinating. And kudos to Indianapolis.
They've done it again, haven't they?
You know, they have. And let me tell you what I think we are actually seeing in front of us. The city of Indianapolis and its relationship with sports, and notably amateur sports, and I realize swimming is not that, but the non-stick and ball sports, is a long history. And I have mentioned this on many occasions. You know, it started in 1976 probably with Unigov and Richard Luger, and then building Market Square Arena and lifting the Pacers into the NBA and having a professional team. But in addition to that, and you had at that time the Racers here and the Checkers. The Checkers were the minor league affiliate for the New York Islanders. The Racers were a WHA top-level franchise that then dissolved and was essentially, the pieces were acquired in by the Edmonton Oilers. But the city in the early 1980s, probably starting with that Market Square Arena Final Four in 1980, made a concerted effort that Indianapolis was going to be the amateur sports capital of the world. And the first step for that was the 1982 National Sports Festival, which essentially was the equivalent today of like AAU national championships for all of the various Olympic-type sports, basketball included, though, and for 18 and under people. And then that Indianapolis did such a good job showcasing itself during the National Sports Festival that it parlayed into the Pan American Games in 1987, which, as I've said before, you guys have heard me talk about it. I can't emphasize enough how awesome the Pan Am Games were and how surreal they were in 1987 for Indianapolis, which was just starting to introduce itself. It was a city going through its adolescence and really taking the next step towards adulthood as a city. And the Pan Am Games were so awesome because we were so convinced that the whole world was epicentered and focused on Indianapolis. And admittedly, since then, I have no idea where a Pan Am Games has ever been played. I think they still play it. I'm not positive. But it was awesome. And then that became parlayed into the Final Fours and growing itself, then the Colts becoming, hosting Monday Night Football, and everybody knows the history from there. COVID happened, and downtown Indianapolis has taken a massive beating. I love this city like nobody's business, but it's tough. It's been disappointing and disheartening, as you guys know, to work down here on the Circle, and on the beautiful summer days, there's hardly anybody out. You don't see people walking around eating lunch on the steps of Monument Circle, partially because there's only one side of steps even available.
Got to wear a helmet still on the other side.
That's right. The number of people in downtown, I remember when downtown was vacant holes because they were building Circle Center Mall. And now Circle Center Mall has its own challenges, and I know that has a new future in front of it. But some of the major restaurants that have left downtown, it's been tough. It's been sad. I really do believe that just as I'm sitting here right now in 2024 talking about how the National Sports Festival and the Pan American Games catapulted Indianapolis, I think it's entirely possible that 15 to 20 years from now, someone will be doing a radio show in Indianapolis talking about and chronicling the history of sports here. And what we've seen this weekend and this week, pardon the pun, is a watershed moment potentially. Because even though, and I'm not trying to be full of hyperbole here, but even though you still have the Colts and you still have the Pacers and the Eastern Conference Finals were here and everything else, this is an event that is taking place over the course of an extended period of time that is bringing tons of people downtown and tons of eyeballs, but also it is showcasing what Indianapolis can do above and beyond itself. The entire country is captivated by the fact that there is a pool inside of an NFL stadium. If you watch the broadcast of it, all you hear over and over is NFL stadium, NFL stadium, NFL stadium. And the fact that Indianapolis was the city that had the foresight to do it this way, had the creativity to do it this way, the Indiana Sports Corps had the initiatives and the volunteer base and the group of people and the women put together to make this a reality, shows what can be done when you think outside the box. And I really do think that this is the kind of event that will be one 15 years from now we'll look back on as a spearhead towards rebirthing downtown Indianapolis on the national stage.
Well,
I think it's awesome.
And I would even go to bring it further than just this event, because, Jake, I think you're right. This is the apex of 2024 being a resurgence for Indianapolis on the national stage. Because you look at, it's only June, right? Look at what's happened to this point already. You've had NCAA first and second round games. You've had NIT having their Final Four and their championship game here. You had All-Star Weekend before that. These are big, primetime, national eyeball events reminding the world that Indianapolis is a place to have high-caliber, championship-level, entertaining events, and they're going to do it with a level of class and excellence that is going to separate them from maybe other bigger cities or flashier cities. That's not even, that summary is overshadowing and overlooking the Combine, which is done tremendously still by this city. And then you cap it all off, as you mentioned, with having the world looking in on Indianapolis, such an incredibly captivating venue of Lucas Oil Stadium being, as you mentioned, a full 360 turned into an aquatic center, basically, in a span of just a couple of weeks. And what they've done to set this up to, you would hope, then further pass the baton of a reminder and a call to action of Indianapolis is a place for big sports. Continue to see that. I think the sky is the limit, to your point of this being a resurgence year for the city and the sports committee and everything that Indianapolis has been known for in the past that were impacted heavily by COVID. 2024 has been a massive year for events and sports in this city, and it's gives you a sense of really civic pride as all of us being Hoosiers to see it done at such a high level once again. And it takes countless levels of volunteer work and workers and time committed in, and it's been great. And we still have basically all the rest of this week to enjoy the swim trials, and there's so much more still on the horizon for what this city can be, what it was, and what it's reminded people that it can be.
So, Jimmy, the difference, though, is this, and this is, again, not a knock in any way, shape, or form on the other events. The difference between this event and, say, the NFL Combine and the NBA All-Star Game. The NBA All-Star Game happened when it was snowing outside and it was 15 degrees, and it was 3 days. The NFL Combine doesn't have the coaches and all that. I get that.
My point is the events being here.
Understood, but let me finish. But in terms of the fan base that's coming from out of town and staying here for an extended period of time, but walking around and soaking in the city, simply what I'm getting at is it's largely because it's the summertime and the weather's perfect. And this is what, like, the thing about downtown Indianapolis that people love is its walkability. And Indianapolis has transformed itself specifically for this event. You know, you've got the Eiffel Tower, like, out in front of Pan Am Plaza, and big tapestries on the sides of buildings. It is showcasing for a sport and for a group of people that aren't used to being the straw mixing the drink. And they love the fact that they come to Indianapolis and Indianapolis is putting them on center stage. And that is allowing people to experience the Indianapolis that we have always known, as opposed to the Indianapolis that was stuck in the COVID rut, which unfortunately the other events of the last 3 years have kind of been forced to see. This is the first one where, to me at least, and I could be wrong, but for me, this is the first event that has taken place in Indianapolis that feels like the why Indianapolis hosts these events, where the whole city is turning out to enjoy it and embrace it, and the rest of the country is celebrating Indianapolis. The U.S. swimming Olympic trials, the thing to me that is very cool about it, and maybe it's because of the echo chamber I live in, but it feels to me like Indianapolis is being celebrated just as much as the event itself and showcased. Whereas the other events that Indianapolis has hosted at times, it's just another stop on the Magical Mystery Tour. I think it's super cool. And I have enjoyed it, and we're going to go down this week and watch it, and I look forward to doing exactly that. And I am totally impressed by and pleasantly surprised by the number of people I've seen posting that have gone down to take it in, simply because of civic pride as much as about swimming. Did you see that? Did you watch the end of the U.S. Open, either one of you guys?
I did catch the end of it, yes.
I think the thing about golf that's fascinating, and maybe I'm just myself kind of learning this personally, but here are the best of the very best, and yet when it comes down to it, Rory McIlroy, and I know that over the course of 4 days and 4 rounds, there are a billion different shots, but it is amazing, Jimmy, that the best of the best it comes down to, and he's got to sink basically like an 8-foot putt in order to force a playoff, and he rims it out.
Yeah, I mean, he had a putt earlier, I think it was on 16, that gave away his lead and made him be one shot back. And there's a great piece on ESPN.com that highlights how the difference in that sport can often be your short game. And regardless of all the other holes that led up to your final 2 to play to try to go win a major, it can very much be a game of inches. And that's what it was. DeChambeau winds up hitting a near identical putt to the one that McIlroy ends up missing. Of course, he had different obstacles to get to that point. He had to have an incredible bunker save shot to set up that putt. But yeah, Rory, regrettably, it's you hate to see it, but he did. He gave one away yesterday, choked it away in the final 3 holes, and DeChambeau acknowledged that sometimes in that game, more than any other, it requires a little bit of luck. You need a little bit of lady luck to go your way, and timely putting is critical down the stretch of a major like that. Rory didn't have it yesterday in the final 3 holes. Give DeChambeau credit for hanging around and capitalizing, and yeah, his putt ends up being, I think, just 3 feet out, and Rory's is roughly 2 feet out, and one guy makes it, the other guy misses, and it turns an entire 4-day event's worth of golf on its head in the span of 3 holes. And DeChambeau gets his second major and second U.S. Open, and Rory is still left hungrily, bitterly seeking out his next major.
The Indiana Fever made me look foolish over the weekend, because I had said going into the weekend that their last win, it's because they kind of shifted towards going back to their bread and butter, which was featuring Aaliyah Boston and getting her established down low. And then they come back yesterday with a win where Caitlin Clark and the outside play more balanced, but Caitlin Clark played really, really well. And I think that in a rookie campaign, this is what you're going to see, kind of ups and downs in that regard. There was a flagrant foul that, I'll be honest with you, and Angel Reese, I think it was flagrant just in terms of the what's the word, the force, I guess, of the arm moving down, but I didn't think that it was malicious. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that. I didn't think it was out for blood, the foul itself. I mean, it felt somewhat unnecessary.
But
I'm
a
not
win
mad
streak,
about the call,
right?
But, yeah,
a win streak.
Streak is continuing, and Jake, when you brought up the Boston needing to play through her commentary last week, I agreed with you, but I gave the caveat of I would like to see it happening through the Boston-Clark connection, but more of an offensive output from Caitlin, and that's what happened yesterday in their home contest against the Sky. She has 23 points. Some of those passes just as breathtaking as you remember seeing from her at Iowa, especially some of those post feeds into the, I think, late third, early stage of the fourth quarter in that game. The Boston-Clark connection was strong, and really a full-scale effort from the Fever's starting 5 to kind of guide them and navigate through with some tough defense, holding the Sky to only 17 points in the fourth. But that is ultimately, and that's the one place about the Fever you and I have agreed on wholeheartedly, Jake, regardless of who's leading the team in scoring, that connection of Clark and Boston, as we've all said, as the Fever have said, since they knew that Caitlin Clark was going to be a member of their team. That connection is where this franchise is going to be elevated and going to thrive to. When you're looking at the idea of the Fever being able to someday hoist another WNBA trophy and win a WNBA Finals, it's going to come from that tandem and pairing pieces around them. And I felt like throughout that game, especially in the second half, that connection was on full display. But it's also true when I mentioned I wanted a little bit more scoring from Clark. That type of 23-9 night, she's averaging about 16, 17 points a game. But if you can have her right in the area of 17 to 22 points a game with 8 or 9 assists, I think that's really the sweet spot for where this offense can gel to the point it wants to. That said, though, as long as her passing is on point like it was yesterday, it doesn't matter necessarily how much scoring she's pouring in, as much that will set up her teammates much like she did at times at Iowa for high-level success, which is why you saw the starters have the type of performance they did yesterday. And, Jake, this is great in terms of regional activity, the budding rivalry renewed between the Sky and the Fever, and the already underwater, or undertow, I should say, there, of bubbling to the surface animosity between Reese and Clark will only continue to fuel that.
Totally.
And you would think then draw further interest, further staying power for what the WNBA is trying to grasp with this Clark momentum.
What jersey or kit, sweater, whatever, are you wearing today?
The first one was fine. It is the jersey of the French national team for the Euros this year. It's my favorite kit of all of them, favorite jersey of all of them that are out there. You know me, Eddie knows this as well. I'm a sucker for a good pinstripe pattern, and that's what we're going with today. So
there's a huge rooster on your chest.
there
right?
is. That is it is the logo / symbol of the French Revolution back in the 14th century.
Okay.
It has deep roots within French culture, and it's the logo of their national team. And then the 2 stars are for the 2 World Cups they won.
Because we're on the radio and I'm now mature.
Yeah, I understand.
I'm bypassing the very obvious joke.
By the way, do you want to take? Are we taking money on this? That JMV will not have that level of maturity and will make that joke if he sees said logo? Because I thought about that when I put it on today.
Yes, he probably will.
Okay,
That's
all right.
correct.
Yeah.
Now, here's my soccer question of the day.
Sure.
And Chris Plumb's going to join us, by the way, coming up in just a couple of minutes. He, of course, the swim coach at Carmel High School and overseeing what – and I'm curious to ask him this. I'm going to put him on the spot with a statistical question regarding Hamilton County and the Olympic trials. But I want to talk to him about the number of Carmel swimmers and just Hamilton County swimmers in general that are punching their ticket to potentially go to France, to Paris, for the Olympic Games. Keith Boggs is going to join us coming up. He is the chairman of the Gold Gloves of Indiana. He's going to join us at the 2 o'clock hour. Frank Martin, one of the fighters from Indianapolis, actually had a chance to win the lightweight championship over the weekend. He was knocked out, but I think it's still very cool. I wanted to talk to Keith about that. And IUPUI, now known as Indiana University, Indianapolis, we now know that they, in fact, are getting a basketball arena that's going to be a multi-sport, multi-purpose facility. And their athletic director going to join us coming up. Luke's going to join us about 35 minutes from now. But here's my question about soccer for you before we get to Chris Plumb, Jimmy, and Eddie. Yesterday, I'm driving on my street. I'm driving along, and all of a sudden, and I'm not like speeding. I'm in a residential area, but I'm driving along, and I hear this kerthud. Meow. Exactly, right? My terrible fear. I'm like, oh my gosh. Please tell me I didn't just hit an animal. So I turn around, I do a U-turn, and there's something in the middle of the road. And then I look to my side, and I see like 10 people standing in the front yard, and they all look with like long looks on their face.
Oh.
Their soccer ball was kicked out into the middle of the road, and I ran over it, and it popped the soccer ball.
That's tough.
So I pick up the soccer ball. It was a nice soccer ball, and it was a Tottenham ball.
Okay.
So it also had a large rooster-type figure on it, as you know.
Yes, yeah.
And I said, well, it looks like I owe you a soccer ball. And what I presume to be the mother or like one of the adults said, it's fine. I mean, it literally, like the ball, it flew out right in front of your car. I mean, I'm guessing somebody was kicking a penalty shot or something. And
Sure.
And she's like, it's fine. And there was a very nice little kid. There had to have been 10 to 15 people in this yard. And one of the little kids said, we have like 5 of them. It's fine. And I'm gathering that if you are a soccer family, you probably have a number, not just one soccer
Correct.
ball.
Just like in most Hoosier dwellings, a basketball would be a plenty. You would
Correct.
think.
So
Did
here's
not
my
ask
question.
to play Get to Know Your Listener?
What's that?
Did not ask to play Get to Know Your
No.
Listener?
Well,
Very
actually,
unfortunate.
because he was a kid, he said, "Oh, and by the way, he said he loves Get to Know Your Listener because
Okay.
our research tells us kids in particular love that." Here's my question: am I under obligation to replace their soccer ball?
I think you already tried to do that, and they turned you away.
Here's my point, or what I would say. If the ball was in the road sitting there and you still ran over it even though you saw it, I would say yes. But if it happened to just go out into the middle of the road as you were driving, total accident, no, you do not.
Who's intentionally rolling over the side? Wouldn't you try to protect your car and avoid it altogether if you saw it sitting in the road?
Correct.
Are you implying there's a world where Jake Query just sees different sports objects on the road and enjoys ruining childhood dreams? So
No,
he
it
just
could have been
runs
one of
over
those
them?
things where you think you're going to avoid it, but you accidentally
Okay.
run over it.
Okay.
I'd like to show you guys my. And by the way,
Did
Jimmy,
you replace it?
I did replace
Okay.
it. It's arriving today between 12:45 and 4:45.
That's cool.
I felt bad.
That's if it doesn't get delayed, right?
It was no kidding, which is probably inevitable. It was a really nice soccer
Is
ball,
it
though, and I
through,
felt
is it
bad.
through your account where there's often delays that you inexplicably get delays when me and Eddie don't?
Yes.
Okay.
And furthermore, when I mail ordered you guys some,
Is it a replica ball, by the way? Like same ball?
it's the exact same
Okay.
thing.
All right.
And furthermore, this is making up for the fact that I had helped you guys in terms of, and we're not going to say any names here, but there was a major brand that I had an offer for a discount for. So you guys used my account in order to purchase some things. I said, hey, if you guys want this discount, pick out what you
It was
want.
very kind of you.
And then 6 weeks later, Jimmy sends me a thing that says, do you have the receipt? I've got to exchange mine. I'm like, that's.
By the way, not
I've got
because
a
they don't fit.
72-hour window of keeping on to those things.
Not because they don't fit, because they have they're faulty. They ripped apart inexplicably.
Well, I don't know if I told you this.
I don't know if I gave you that clarifier.
How do you think I got the discount? These came all the way from somewhere in the far Pacific. Chris Plumb, by the way, is the man in charge of everything that happens with Carmel swimming, and they have a number of swimmers that are letting the world know about what's taking place in Hamilton County. He's going to join us. We're going to talk about that next.
This hour of The Fan is fueled
Plumb is the CEO of the Carmel Swim Club, head coach there. Is he poolside right now? I think he's calling in right now as we speak. And he has won, are you ready for this? 31 state swimming titles. That would be 18 on the girls' side, 13 on the boys' side. The girls, of course, have won 38 consecutive.
It's incredible. It is absolutely
incredible.
insane.
And he joins us now in what I am sure is a very busy but exciting time for him. Coach, first off, thank you so much for joining us, and I would assume that this is basically a week long of Christmas for you.
Well, Christmas, if it means you can't sleep every night because the excitement, it's just been an amazing experience so far.
I want to begin with this statistical anomaly, and I am not anticipating you to know the answer, so you get a free pass here. So I'm asking it almost rhetorically. Does Hamilton County have the highest representation of swimmers in these trials of any county in the United States? And I ask that not even facetiously. I have been stunned. I think it's 32 total swimmers that in some way, shape, or form connect with Indiana, and the majority of them seem to come from Hamilton County. The representation is unbelievable.
Well, that's a great question. I don't know. That's obviously a really high number. I'd be interested maybe like somewhere in Orange County or something like that in California. But, yeah, there's definitely a hotbed of swimming happening here in Indianapolis and Hamilton County in particular that not a lot of people know or recognize. So
let's kind of overview, if you could, Chris, for those, and I want to approach this a little bit for our listeners that maybe are not the totally, in the pool, aware of swimming and everything that is taking place. So let's walk it back a little bit in terms of those that, for example, I know that Luke Whitlock, he broke a Michael Phelps record. He is from the Fishers Swim Club, so not necessarily completely underneath your thumbprint, but at the same time, I'd assume you know all of these kids really, really well, young adults really well. He's a native of Noblesville, but you take me through the swimmers that you have, and in addition to that, those that maybe have even surprised you in terms of, at this point, what they've been able to do.
Yeah, I certainly know Luke, and he got fourth. And I feel really good about him coming up, and we've watched him grow and mature and swim really fast. But, I think, for us in Carmel, we have, 14 athletes that are competing here and the 8 that I directly train. And then the Shackles, Aaron Shackle made the Olympic team on the first night in the 400 free. And I thought he could do it, but he made it. And that was just a tremendous experience. But knowing these kids for so long, but then watching them compete against the best in the country in a football stadium is just unreal.
Where does that level of pride change, Coach, from seeing them do it as a student athlete underneath your tutelage to seeing them do it on the grandest stage the country has to offer?
Yeah, I mean, it's like we have such good swimming here, and we kind of take it for granted. But then when you're swimming in the same heat as Katie Ledecky, who this name we've always known and paid attention to, who's, won Olympic gold, so many, she could break the record this summer. It's just like, it's almost surreal to think, here we are, we know, great high school team, like you mentioned, but it's just another level to come and race against the best in the country. And most of our kids are high school kids racing against collegiate athletes and even pro athletes. So I think it's just a tremendous achievement for our program and our team and the kids of Hamilton County to be doing that here.
When you look, Coach, Chris Plumb is our guest from, of course, Carmel High School and Carmel Swimming. When you look at young swimmers, I'm curious of this, and see if I can word this correctly. You get to know, if you see a young swimmer, and I'm talking like, I have no idea, like what is the age where you truly can kind of tell that there is something there? And then in addition to that, what is the, let's say, 3 to 4 year window that is the most critical in terms of the development or change of one's body and physical attribute to make sure that they are still able to maintain? In other words, is there a year period where then you say, okay, if it hasn't happened or it's fallen off by here, then we've gone too far past? Does that make sense, what I'm talking about in terms of the window of time?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think, It depends. Obviously, a lot of it comes down to when people go through puberty. But I can tell all the 10 and under parents in the world that you have no idea if they're going to be good or not. So don't there's no 10 and under champions. To me, I think a lot of the time it's like that 13, 14 range. What do they look like? What do their strokes look like? Do they have the right form? And then you kind of get to the mental attributes. Are they willing to train and do the work? And then they have that kind of it. Are they winning the close races? Or were they willing just to go to places mentally and physically in a race that other people just aren't willing to go? That's how you separate yourself. I remember, Jake Mitchell, who was an Olympian in 21. I remember when he was 14 years old, and I saw him come back in this race like I've never seen another athlete do before. And I'm like, okay, that kid's special. He's really got something.
At what point through Aaron's specific training, Aaron Shackle, who ends up winning the 400 freestyle Saturday night to secure his spot and punch his ticket to Paris, can you point to a moment where you felt like at age 19 for this young man that the Olympic team and being a part of Paris and representing the U.S. was obtainable, and not only obtainable, was something that you felt like he could definitively do?
Yeah, man, like it's hard to pinpoint one moment, but certainly I think I watched him go. It's called the Junior Pan Pacific Championships, where the best in the U.S. and 18 under compete against the best in Australia, the best in Japan, the best in Canada. And, he ended up being seated second going into finals in the 200 butterfly. Again, the best 18 and unders. And I tell you what, in this race, he went out after it and he held on. And I was like, I think there's something there. And that was 2 years ago. So here we are. And he stood up against the best in the country. And, he won from wire to wire, which is a great swim for him. So I would say in the past two years, that's when I saw it.
How much of, Chris, and look, for those that don't know your story, you grew up in Buffalo, New York, right?
Yep.
You grew up watching the Bills, and you thought, well, this sucks. I got to get out of here and get around stuff that wins for a change, right? So you leave Buffalo, and you went to IU, right?
Yep.
And then you get into coaching, and you have done a phenomenal job. I mean, that goes without saying, right? But there was this foundation that was there at Carmel. I think Tony Young had a lot to do with that, and just the basis, right? The foundation that you have carried even further more. But how much of the winning mentality and the competitiveness within the pool of your athletes is now bred from those that they are replacing when they walk into school for the first time as a freshman, and seeing the example that is being set for them by their peers that are in front of them?
Yeah, well, first of all, I just want to say go Bills. And I think losing and watching the Bills lose 4 straight Super Bowls makes me want to coach better, because I hate that feeling.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm
yeah.
sure.
Yeah, so, but, I do think the kids like to say, we're standing on the shoulders of giants. And so those that came before us helped pave the way to get to that next level. And you have to see it firsthand to go through it and understand it. And that knowledge is just getting passed down and passed down and passed down. And I used to get asked all the time, Carmel's winning all these high school championships. How come you don't have an Olympian? Well, we're talking about the NFL. There's 26 men on the Olympic team. There's 32 NFL starting quarterbacks. There's more starting quarterbacks than there are Olympic men on the team coming up. So that's how hard it is to make it. And going through these cycles again and again, you just get better at it. The kids get better at it, and they just pass their knowledge down, and they want to see each other do well. So that's the cool part of what's going on right now.
And facilities obviously help as well. And you guys have, basically a state-of-the-art, especially for the high school level, natatorium. If you could take me through that, and then in addition to that, your thoughts and impressions on this particular pool in Lucas Oil Stadium.
Yeah, we've certainly been blessed in Hamilton County with the facilities and the athletic administration, understanding and value what sports bring to the youth. And, we've been blessed with facilities. But, I've been to Lucas Oil. I've watched the Colts play. I've watched the NCAA finals when Duke and Butler played. I've been to a U2 concert, and now to be swimming in that pool, it's unbelievable to have this pool in Lucas Oil with 20,000 fans cheering people on. And they've done a great job on the production value. So, that Indianapolis and this facility is it's an unbelievable experience. And people, even non-swimming people, love coming down. Like I heard yesterday, it's like watching a movie. Your heart's pounding, the production value's up, the music's high, you're cheering, you're along with these people. So Indianapolis has just done a fantastic job putting this event on.
I remember with the natatorium, Chris, the narrative always was when I was a kid, it was like, well, that's a really fast pool. That's a fast pool.
Yeah.
And what makes a fast pool, and is this one a fast pool?
Yeah. Well, what makes a fast pool usually, I mean, it's kind of weird to say, but it's like the depth of the pool really matters because, like, your body creates a wave, and that wave needs to go down deep enough so it doesn't come back and hit you and slow you down. So in a really shallow pool, that water that you move actually comes back and slows you down. Obviously, in swimming, we're talking about a tenth of a second, but that makes a difference. And then where the water goes when you hit the turn, you don't want the water coming back at you. It needs to go someplace, like in the gutter. So, yeah, the natatorium was a really fast pool. It's ahead of its time. Really deep gutters, really deep pool. And those things make the natatorium in this pool fast. And I got to tell you, I mean, 20,000 people makes a pool fast too.
So this pool, though, they did take those things into consideration, I guess, in the fact of they did facilitate for a faster pool?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the USA Swimming people have done a great job in doing this. And it's been in Omaha in their indoor basketball stadium from 8, 12, 16, and then 21. So this is the first time it's ever been done in a football stadium.
Head coach of Carmel Swim Club in Carmel High School, Chris Plumb, is our guest, joining us on the CarX Tire and Auto guest line. Coach, I was driving back north. I live up in Carmel, and I was driving up on Spring Mill, and the second you cross now from Marion County into Hamilton County, instead of a sign acknowledging Mayor Sue Finkman and welcome to Carmel, you're hit with Swim City USA, home of 14 U.S. Olympic trial qualifiers. Did you have anything to do with Swim City USA? And if not, what do you make of the moniker representing Carmel and to a larger extent all of Hamilton County?
Yeah, I think my only hand in that was producing or helping produce the athletes that actually did that. But no, I did not have a hand. The great thing about the city of Carmel is they don't do anything. They go all out in everything they do, right? So they caught on to this, and they love the idea of it, and so they've kind of gone with it and flown with it. So this is all them, but I thought it was the coolest thing to come in to be Swim City USA. We got T-shirts made. My wife's going to buy me pint glasses with Swim City USA. So it's just great that this city supports and gets behind us.
Are you going to go to Paris?
Yeah, I was so disappointed in 21 when I coached Jake because I didn't get to go because of all the COVID restrictions.
Right.
And this is an event I cannot.
That was London, right?
21 was Japan.
Oh, Japan. That's right. Tokyo. You're right. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. That's all good. So this is just, I've got to figure out how to get there and watch them swim.
Now, lastly, Chris Plumb, you mentioned that your wife got you some pint glasses. Here's my last one for you. Myself and two of my buddies that I grew up with decided that we needed to adopt an NHL team. I've told this story on the air. Just to have a reason for us to stay in touch over the wintertime and group text and everything else. And we wanted a team basically that sucks, that no one's a fan of, so that we're not front runners or bandwagoners like the guys that I'm on the radio with. And so we picked the Buffalo Sabres. So I've got a Sabres hat. I'm all in on the Sabres. We're going to go to Buffalo in 2 years and watch a Sabres game. I'm assuming since you're a Buffalo native that you have at least fleeting interest in the Sabres. At some point, can you and I get together for a pint and watch a Sabres game?
Absolutely. I would love to watch a Sabres game. Eventually, we're going to make the playoffs again.
It's the longest drought in professional sports, by the way.
Trust me. It's like the Bills got good again, and then the Sabres can't do it. It's like, that's just the Buffalo way, that's what we do.
The only thing longer than the Carmel girls' state swimming streak is the Buffalo Sabres playoff drought, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Are you a Sabres fan or just a Bills fan?
No, I'm a Sabres fan. I'm Buffalo through and through.
Let's go. All right.
The way.
All right. Well, There you go. I'll loop you into the group text, and you can sit there and commiserate with my buddies and I as if we know anything what we're talking about.
Oh, no,
Okay,
that's
Chris,
good.
rest of the day for you looks like what? Give me the quick schedule for today, or in terms of for the Hamilton County, and I'll include the kids from Fishers, but in terms of the local swimmers, what we're looking for, let's say today or tomorrow, is what?
Yeah, well, tonight is a big race. We got 2 big races. So the final, the men's and women's 200 free. So we're gonna put some more Olympians. The top 4 automatically make it in the men's and the women's. And from Carmel, we got Jake Mitchell, Drew Kibler, and Aaron Shackle. And on the women's, we got Alex Shackle. And I know IU's got Anna Poplawski in that tonight. So we're deciding Olympic spots tonight. Come on down, and it's just going to be a great event.
So Drew Kibler was a scratch in the 400 free, if I'm not mistaken, but he does have other events and is obviously massively talented. Goes without saying, right?
Yeah, I think he's the 2nd or 3rd seed tonight. So he's got a great shot tonight at making the team.
All right, Coach, we appreciate it. Go Sabres, and best of luck, and I appreciate the time. I know it's very, very busy, so thanks for illuminating a little of it with us and educating us on what's going on. I appreciate it.
Yep, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, again, Chris Plumb, the head swimming coach, 31 championships at Carmel, 18 of them with the girls, 13 with the boys. The girls have won 38 consecutive state championships. That is the longest streak of any sport in any state in the United States of America. Good stuff. By the way, speaking of the natatorium that I mentioned earlier, fast pool, right? Well, right in the shadows of it, there's now going to be a new sports facility. And one of the individuals that has helped putting that all together is going to talk with us about exactly that coming up in just under 15 minutes.
Make the short trip to experience Antler.
Going with the soundtrack Fast Times, right?
Not on purpose, just feeling a little Tom Petty today.
Really?
Yeah.
Saw Tom Petty in Toronto.
You also saw a cover over the weekend, right?
I did. I saw The Elect doing this exact song. And I think I sent it to you and said, look, it's as if Hamilton's out waxing down the cruising vessel, right?
Yeah. How many more payments does he have?
I think he has 3 payments left, right?
And then it's all his.
Jimmy, have you ever seen somebody become so obsessed with something so quickly?
I've not. It's very admirable. What is it now? 4 times in how long?
Eddie, you have no idea the level of like how it warms my heart the way that if nothing else, the one area where I have influenced you as the young Jedi is that you are now hooked on Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
You know, after we finished watching that, I was looking to see if I could stream Shawshank anywhere. And Olivia goes, "We are not watching Shawshank. It's 1:30 in the morning. Time to go to bed."
It is a long movie. I will tell you that. It's a long movie, but I'm telling you.
We will see if it gets watched this week. I have in my copy a DVD that was lent to me from my neighbor. I've yet to pop it in, but it potentially gets done this week, at least on my end.
I'm going to predict.
Are you worried you're overselling? Like, I know
impossible?
I know it's in the Library of Congress for being, culturally relevant, and I understand it's a very good movie. But are you at all worried that you are overselling it to the point that it's going to not reach the bar of expectations you've set forward?
I am guaranteeing that you will come in and you will say 3 words to me.
Okay.
You were right.
Okay.
Those
To be
will the
clear,
3 words.
I'm not knocking you that it's probably going to be good. I'm just asking if you're overselling it all.
I'd like for somebody.
Because sometimes you do that, not you, but like we as people, we get people hyped up for something we love, and then we oversell, and it doesn't live up to the hype.
I get it. That is a fair point. But I don't know that it's possible to be done when it comes to Shawshank, quite frankly. If there's somebody out there that thinks Shawshank is overrated, call in right now. You can't give any spoilers to the movie, though. But if you think Shawshank was overrated, or if you think it's underrated for that matter, right now at 239-1070, we got like 2 minutes to get to it, but I'm telling you.
I also want to clear on the front end, I'm not a Shawshank hater. I just have not taken the time, and I've somehow missed all the FX TNT summer airings of it throughout
incredible
29 years on this earth.
The first response I have here on text, at least, just says best movie ever. Next one, it's one of the greatest movies ever, hands down. I'm telling you. All right, Eddie, we got 2 people calling in. Let's throw one of them on here. We can do it roulette style if need be. This always makes for dangerous radio. What line are we going with here? Line 1, roulette style. You are on the air. What is your name, sir or madam?
Hey guys, it's Matthew.
Matthew, okay. Now you did not like Good Will Hunting, but Shawshank. Do not give out any spoilers. But underrated, overrated, or equally sold when you saw it? Because you only recently saw it, correct?
Correct.
Okay, underrated, overrated, or about what you thought?
Underrated. It should have won every award that it was eligible for that year.
Okay, thank you, Matthew. Appreciate it. That's Matthew in Maine. All right, we got Jimmy next. Jimmy, what's up?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Jimmy?
Excellent. Enjoying the sun.
It is nice out. By the way, stay cool and stay hydrated. Okay, Jimmy, underrated, overrated, or about what you thought. No spoilers, please.
Oh, fantastic. And speaking of staying hydrated in the sun, that scene where they are out in the sun and staying hydrated.
Yes, sir.
Absolute top-tier cinema, one of the best scenes of all time.
You know why, Jimmy? It's because a man is only a man when he's able to enjoy himself some cold suds. Okay, lastly, we'll go with Mark. Mark,
Hey,
underrated or overrated?
Way, way underrated. Fabulous movie.
Okay. So I cannot oversell it, right, Mark?
No, you cannot. It is a fabulous movie. It's so good. And the first time I saw it, I couldn't believe how good it was. So it's one of those ones when you see it on TV, you want to watch the rest of it.
Yep,
so it doesn't matter where it is.
Yes, it is impossible to flip through it on the channels. That is correct. Like you're like, well, you know what? I'm up 2 more hours. That's just the way it's going to be. That's just the way it's going to be.
I'm looking forward to diving into the waters.
I'm telling you guys. Luke Bosso, by the way, is the athletic director at IU Indianapolis. Jake, I'm not familiar with IU Indianapolis. Yes, you are. It used to be called IUPUI. It's now IU Indianapolis. And new arena coming. We're going to talk about exactly that next.
The Ride with JMV.
retention was not necessarily always a strong suit of mine, but I'm going to see if my retention of our previous conversation with the athletic director at IU Indy, Luke Bosso, is correct. Formerly IUPUI, now IU Indianapolis or IU Indy. And Luke, you tell me if my retention is correct. We had talked about the possibility of an on-campus arena, and during that conversation you had said that things were trending towards that direction, but the final piece in making it a reality was that you needed to get, essentially, for lack of a better phrase, partnership in who would be able to utilize the facility above and beyond just, say, the basketball program for your university. And my understanding is now that that has, in fact, come to fruition, where we now know that it is a multi-purpose facility that will be coming to your campus. How would you grade me? Am I correct in any way, shape, or form in my retention and review?
You know, when I was a college professor, I was a pretty easy grader, so that's an A right there on how you retained it. So happy to be here, Jake, and happy to talk about this great day, not just for IU Indianapolis, but for the city of Indianapolis. Okay,
so let's talk about it. My understanding is essentially the site that was formerly the U.S. Tennis Center, where the clay courts, that was originally where I was told. What can you tell us, Luke? And congratulations on this. What can you tell us in terms of what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, and what it's going to be?
Yeah. So last Friday at the IU Board of Trustees meeting, our board, led by Quinn Buckner and, of course, President Witten, approved one of the first steps in moving forward with the new athletic center here on campus, which will be located, as you said, in the old tennis center grassy knoll. There's still a couple more steps we have to go through with the Commission of Higher Ed and the State Budget Committee, but to your point, one of the big things the General Assembly said we had to do was find a partner in the building with us, and really excited that USA Track and Field has decided to join us in the building and be long-term partners, and really continue the tradition of great multi-purpose sports venues on our campus. And, the great part for us, Jake, is we have a model already on campus in the natatorium that anybody can come use to host other events other than just IU Indy events. And we're looking forward to this step, checking this step off the box and continue to move forward on this project.
Luke, it's been very cool since my childhood days to now through young adulthood and now into my professional life to be able to see the city of Indianapolis continue to transform and grow. And one of the backbones of that has been the growth and development of the campus of IU Indy. As this project gets finalized and gets underway, what do you envision it doing, not just for the student athlete, but for students, for overall campus life, and for the city as a whole, seeing another great addition to this community?
Yeah, I mean, this whole last year has been cool, guys, for me. And, being from here and playing a small part in development before I got here and hopefully playing a bigger part after I got here, this is going to be amazing for downtown. I mean, if you think about this area with White River State Park, with their expansion, with the Elanco expansion, with Everwise and what they're doing, and now adding this venue within walking distance of a lot of other things in downtown Indy, it's going to give us another opportunity to host events. It's going to give our students the opportunity to gather somewhere on campus to cheer for our women's volleyball team, our men's and women's basketball team, come together and go to other events. I mean, I think this is one of those staples that we're going to look back in 10 years when enrollment continues to go up and the campus continues to change, and we're going to point to the moment of this arena, or this athletic center, that's been a change and really gives students here that legitimate Division I college experience, which is what we said we wanted to have from the very first moment I stepped on campus.
Okay, a couple of nuts and bolts questions here, Luke. First off, seating capacity.
Yeah, so we're going to right now aiming for approximately 4,500.
Okay.
And, obviously it's going to be a multi-purpose arena, so different configurations for one, but on the basketball side, 4,500.
Okay. When you mention USA Track and Field, really dumb question here, they will simply be utilizing it for indoor events, or they also will have office space within it, and how does that configuration work?
Yeah, so they'll be using it for office space. As many people know, they're headquartered here in Indianapolis, and they'll be moving from their Market Street location over and housing their office space here on campus.
Okay. And then, so in my mind, Luke, I'm thinking about like the hyper when I was in college. Like, so is this basically basketball courts with tracks going around it? I mean, which of the, I would assume the track is permanent and the basketball court is removable, but you tell me if that's wrong.
So no track, just the office space.
Oh, just the office space. I'm sorry. I thought they were utilizing it for facilities.
No, just their office space facilities.
Okay. So when you say multi-purpose, could they do like small concerts, for example?
So we're going to work with our partners at the General Assembly and around campus to figure it out. I think probably the more realistic thing, Jake, would be other amateur sports in the venue. So whether it's different types of volleyball or basketball or wrestling, fencing, things of that nature, to kind of really stick with the whole amateur sports atmosphere we've created here with the NAT and what we formerly had at Michael A. Carroll Stadium. I don't foresee us doing concerts, but over the years you can tell. But right now we're really going to focus on additional amateur sports in the venue.
Okay, and then what's the cost and how much of that's public?
So it's as Release said, $110 million cost to it. We're receiving about $89 million from the General Assembly, and then we are putting in the rest.
How will it accent the other great events or other great venues that are already on campus, like Carroll, like the softball complex, like the National Institute of Fitness? How do you envision this kind of being the next great puzzle piece to accent the rest of the campus?
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys are great historians of the city, and know, with Carroll and the Nat with the Pan Am Games and all the other sports ventures we have down here. This is another piece of the puzzle to give us another opportunity to host, other events that maybe we haven't been able to in the past as a city. We're not looking to compete. Obviously, we have great venues already and more great venues coming online. We're looking to fill that void in that 4,500 spectator area to make sure we can host events on campus other than just the IUND teams.
Luke, I've mentioned this to you before. Luke Bosso is our guest, who's the athletic director at IUND. As somebody who took classes, I went to IUPUI when it was, as it was known then. And one of the things to me was, I grew up a diehard IU fan, IU Bloomington fan, right? A fan of the Hoosiers. And I think there were a lot of kids that went to school there that it was because of the number of positive attributes about the university of convenience, cost, et cetera, that they were going there, but their eyes were on a different school they grew up watching athletically. How much of this is rooted in giving the student body at IUND an on-campus identity to ingrain future generations of being able to be proud of and representative of, I'm a student at IUND and this is home for me and these are the teams I'm going to root for?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a big part. I think I may have said this on your guys' show before. I've had friends that ask me what I want my legacy to be when this is all said and done as athletic director, and I want it to be students coming to our games. And this is a big step in allowing that to happen. Of course, we have to win, and I feel confident with Coach Casaro and Coach Bruce and Coach Kroger that we will win. But we want to have our student athletes have a legitimate Division I experience, and we want our students on campus to have a legitimate Division I experience. And I'll also say, Jake, and you guys know it's better than anybody, this city embraces winners better than anybody else. I mean, I saw you at the NIT game with Indiana State, and I would wager a guess that everybody that was at that game cheering for Indiana State wasn't an ISU grad. And we want to create that same mentality here. We want to win, and we want people in Indianapolis to be proud of their public university in this city and know we're going to compete for Horizon League championships every year.
Okay, stays as the Jaguars, correct?
Yep.
And then the jerseys will say IUI, IUND. Like, can I design those?
Well, we've been designing for a long time. I will tell you what they won't say. They won't say IUI. We are IUND or IU Indianapolis.
Okay.
That's what our gear is going to say. And we have a new online store launching this week. I want everybody to hop on there and buy their IU Indy gear. But we've been lucky enough. We've had a couple student athletes help with the jersey design, some of our coaches, and then we have a couple things on tap with some special nights in the basketball season that I think you'll appreciate the nod to history that we're going to show with Coach Casaro and his crew.
Shovels go in the ground when, and the arena is ready when, and you're playing where until that time?
Yeah, so obviously, as I mentioned, a few more things to go through: Commission of Higher Ed, State Budget Committee, and if all those things are on track and happen, shovels in the ground in the fall, and then first games fall of 26. We're hopefully kicking off with the volleyball team in a game in the new facility. In the meantime, men's and women's basketball will both play in the jungle. We'll still do 3 games at the Coliseum. Looking forward to continuing our partnership with them there. And we'll do, but a majority of games are back in the jungle and hopefully creating a wild atmosphere and watching a lot of winning basketball.
Luke, you guys are obviously heavily involved within the community year-round. I've seen Coach Casaro be very active, as he always is, in the social media ranks with summer camps going on. What does the rest of the summer calendar hold for the younger generation of potential future Jaguars over at IU Indy?
Yeah, dude, I keep telling people I think it's going to slow down, and never has or hasn't yet. But, Coach Casaro has 2 or 3 more camps going here in the jungle this summer. Kate Bruce has an elite camp for high school students, as does Andrew Kroger. So, this is kind of our first dip into camps in a long time. We just wrapped up a kids camp on our soccer with our soccer coaches this week. So, we're really trying to build that back. But, we'd love to see as many future Jags at Coach Casaro's camp and downtown Indy and really having a good time. I mean, you Roncalli guys, you guys all put on good camps. So, everybody's going to have a fun time checking that out.
I don't know that I've ever put one on, but I will back you on the whole Coach Casaro knows how to put a good one on. I will tell you that much.
Luke, I've got a really dumb question. I'm almost embarrassed to ask it, such a dumb question, but I've made a living asking dumb questions. So of the $89 million from the General Assembly, is that money that would have been appropriated towards public education anyway, or is that money that is appropriated from tax dollars that has to come from somewhere and it would have gone elsewhere? In other words, is this money that was set aside for Indiana University, Indianapolis regardless, or is it money that is now new fund that is coming in from taxpayers, if that makes sense?
So, I wasn't always here when this process went through. It's not. I will 100% confidently say it is not new tax. It was money that was already with the state and the I believe the surplus. But yeah, it's not a new tax.
Okay. Again, one more time, the first time that I'm going to be watching a game in the new arena will be in what season?
Volleyball season 2026, so fall of 26.
All right. Well, we appreciate it. And again, when does the new online store go up so that people can get IU Indy Jaguar gear?
It'll be up tomorrow. So we want you to – and, Jake, one other thing real quick. I want to give a big shout-out. We wouldn't be able to do these events like the swimming trials without the NAT, without everything we have going on. And we have Logan Kelly, IU Indy swimmer, going tomorrow in the prelims. And then we have Sebastian Otero, who is a Fishers resident, diving at the U.S. Olympic trials down in Knoxville. Sebastian's one of the top 70 divers in the world. So want to have your listeners make sure and watch them compete this week at both trials.
That deal is unbelievable, isn't it? And I led off the show by talking about that, Luke, speaking of the Luke, at the Luke in Lucas Oil Stadium. I think 15 years from now, 20 years from now, we could look back and say that this event this weekend is the thing that truly spearheaded or began the official bounce back of Indianapolis from COVID in terms of getting out-of-towners to see our walkability of downtown and spending extensive nights here in great weather. And the way that they've put that forward, the Indiana Sports Corps, is unbelievable.
Yeah, I was there last night. It was an amazing environment. Obviously, going back tomorrow to watch Logan, and to your point, I mean, everybody I talked to has said how much they love Indianapolis, and we'd love to play a small part of that. And congrats to Patrick Talty and the Sports Court team, and congrats to Tim Hinchy, the CEO of USA Swimming, for having this vision to doing this event in Indianapolis and breaking records. It seems every day they're announcing some record they're breaking. So that's why people come to Indy, and that's why you invest in sports, because it has a huge economic return in this city, and we're excited to be a part of that.
Luke, short notice, realizing coming on today, but I appreciate it, and congratulations on this deal getting done, and we look forward to talking to you throughout the growth of it, and then once basketball and volleyball and other sports are being played there.
Thanks, guys. Let's go, Jags.
All right, Luke Bosso, again, the athletic director at IU Indy, online store tomorrow. I like the fact they're keeping Jaguars. You know,
Me too.
that Jaguar mascot is a cute fella. Not
He
as
is.
cute as the Orioles cute
That's
fella,
true.
but he's kind of a cute fella, right?
He's in the ranks.
Hey, root for me. That's what the Orioles guy's saying. This one has a little more roar to him, right?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit more energy involved in the Jaguar for sure. But yes, he's in the cute fella ranks, no doubt about that. And it's great to see. That has been neat, Jake. And I know that we joke about the varying age that you two and I, the two of us, are in terms of you being on your second half century of your life, and me just approaching 30. But to be able to see Indianapolis, the entire city, transform over the last 25 years, let alone the last 50, has been incredible. And IU Indy has been a huge piece of that as you continue to see the in-city college campus grow and evolve and really be a special part of the skyline. It's been really neat.
Speaking of turning 30, do you know what was 30 years ago today?
I do not.
I'm going to go with June 17th, 1994.
That is correct. Do you know what happened on that date?
Something happened.
Several things happened.
People were born.
Several things happened. One of them, probably more known than others, Jimmy is furiously Googling.
That's
as
what
we
I figured.
speak.
I just wanted to make sure.
People
I was right.
were
Yep.
walking up and down Monument Circle.
No. I'm going to say no. They might have been, but then all of a sudden they all went to a television.
An NBA Finals broadcast interrupted.
30 years ago tonight, at the time, was the most lucrative night in the history of Domino's Pizza. True story. Because 30 years ago tonight, starting on the Eastern time zone, was when the Bronco chase began, and it ended the Eastern time zone dinner hour, is when the Bronco chase began with O.J. Simpson. And by the time it was done, it had spanned into the dinner hour on the Pacific time zone. And literally, people were glued to their television and were like, we can't go anywhere for dinner. And they ordered pizzas, and it was the most lucrative night in the history of Domino's Pizza at that time. It also just happened to be the same day as the Stanley Cup parade for the New York Rangers.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I know that is because I was interning at that time at MTV, as I mentioned to you guys before, and they said, we're doing a video shoot of the Stanley Cup parade. I thought, great. I mean, I was working for MTV Sports at that time. And I thought, well, this is great. I get to go to the Stanley Cup parade. How cool is that, right? And so they said, well, here's your job. The Stanley Cup parade is going to start in Wall Street and then move its way up, I think it was Fifth Avenue, through the Canyon of Heroes in New York City. Jimmy, you would know this by watching probably a billion New York Yankees parades,
Sure.
ticker tape parades. And they said, so great, what's my job? And they said, well, we're going to have Dan Cortez, who was the host of MTV Sports. He was also the boyfriend that Elaine had that got disfigured in the rock climbing accident on Seinfeld. Hey, Tony. He was Tony the Mimbo. That's Dan Cortez. And they said, well, we're just going to film Dan Cortez like having fun with the Stanley Cup parade and with fans. And we rented this white cargo van that we're going to have all the equipment on, the cameras and everything else. And your job as the intern is you have to drive the van one block over, paralleling the parade so that any time when we need something, you pull over and we're going to come and get more stuff out of the back of the van. So I had to drive this potential like predator windowless van through New York City, this huge cargo van through New York City, like a month after I had, not even that, a month after I had arrived in New York City for the very first time. And this was pre-cell phone days, so I had a walkie-talkie where they would go, copy, Jake, we're going to come and get the battery pack pulled over, please. what's your location? And I'm like, I'm in front of a Chinese place. I have no idea what street I'm on. There was no GPS, none of that, right? I'm looking up, and I'm like, I don't know. And I sideswiped a cabbie. I remember I sideswiped a cabbie, and dumb Indiana me, I sideswiped this cab, and I get out, and I'm like, I am so sorry. Here, let me see. I think I have insurance information here. And I'm in the cabbie, like, dropped 7 4-letter words on me and got in his cab and drove off. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess that's how we do it in New York here. Little did I know that on that day of driving the white cargo van, that night, the biggest story in the United States would be the white Bronco. And I remember going back to the building I was living in, and I mean, everybody has their own stories of what they did, but I mean, literally the world froze. I mean, everyone was like, and we were all watching the Knicks-Rockets game because we're in New York. We'd just gone to the Stanley Cup parade, and now the Knicks are playing in the NBA Finals against the Rockets at the Garden. It was in the Garden. And at first, everybody was mad that they couldn't watch the game, and then everyone was captivated by it. But there's a fabulous 30 for 30. My favorite 30 for 30.
It's a great 30 for 30.
It's great. It's that. There were the events that took place 30 years ago today were the Bronco Chase, the Stanley Cup Parade, Arnold Palmer's final round, King Griffey Jr. becoming the youngest player to hit 30 home runs in at the earliest mark in a season for 30 home runs, and the opening day of the World Cup ceremonies in Chicago with Oprah Winfrey emceeing it to kick off the World Cup stateside in America. All of those events happen on the same day, and that 30 for 30 is nothing more than the video coverage of all 5 of those things intertwining for a 2-hour documentary. But what's fascinating about it is oftentimes they took the commentary from one of the things over the video of another. And you see the intersection of these things happening, and you realize the similarities of how sports is so incestuous in terms of the way that we digest it and the way that we report on it, including so much of the Bronco chase as OJ's driving the Bronco, but they use the audio of the commentators describing the fans at the Stanley Cup parade. But you're seeing the video of all the people on the overpasses and cheering on the side of the I-5 in Los Angeles. But you're hearing the commentators saying, look at all of the people, look at the people. And that's talking about the heroes of the Stanley Cup. But it is applicable and seemingly matching the video of a football hero in O.J. Simpson who was driving while, of course, within the same week being charged with double murder. I mean, it's a fascinating documentary, but that was 30 years ago today. And that was the one thing that probably more than any other, I would guess that of the things that happened, like, right around the era just before when you guys were around, born and watching sports, I'll bet that's the one that you guys hear referenced more than any other, the Bronco chase.
Yeah. I would agree. I wouldn't fight that.
It was, especially with OJ just recently departing, for what it's worth. You should watch. Have you seen that 30 for 30?
I have seen that 30 for 30. I was a big fan of the early 30 for 30s. That was right after Winning Time came out, and you had, a One Night in Vegas, which talks about, Tupac's murder. There were a ton of great 30 for 30s when that first got off the ground. That's one of them. And then the larger one, of course, is I think 6-part is what it was, but the OJ Made in America that went much deeper into all of that. But yeah, that perfectly encapsulates how much was going on June 17th. I have
always felt that 30 years ago today, the most ironic thing about 30 years ago today was just before the Bronco chase began, O.J. Simpson had his friend read a letter where O.J. Simpson begged and pleaded for society to leave his children alone and allow them to live a life of anonymity. And the man that read that letter for O.J. Simpson was Bob Kardashian. And that catapulted, and that letter was written in Kim Kardashian's bedroom, and that catapulted Bob Kardashian into the social relevance, and thus it is his children that became household names. And O.J. Simpson's kids live, for the most part, in anonymity. The Arnold Palmer thing that I mentioned that happened 30 years ago today was, in fact, the U.S. Open. It was his last round in the U.S. Open at Oakmont, near his home in Latrobe, Pennsylvania, where, by the way, he was a fourth-grade classmate of Mr. Rogers, if you didn't know that. The U.S. Open happening yesterday as well. And now Bryson DeChambeau, you like or don't like him, Jimmy? Polarizing guy, right?
He is very polarizing, but he is sort of, when he first was in that like kind of rivalry or feud with Brooks Koepka, I thought he was a major tool, and I thought he came off as super arrogant and obnoxious, and he has mellowed out a little bit the last couple of years to the point where, oh man, he's a really good golfer. So the polarizing aspect of him, unless you were on the ground floor in that battle of him versus Koepka, has kind of faded away for me, and I think for some people. So I don't know. I'm not mad that he won. I think he's an incredible golfer. I think he's a little bit eccentric and super nerdy, definitely, about the game of golf, considering that all of his clubs are specifically made to a certain size and degree, and he has custom grips on them and everything. That's why he was called the scientist, because of the way he approached the game of golf. But the bad feelings or animosity maybe I had early on for him have faded away as he's appeared to have anyway matured and mellowed out a bit.
He takes forever, though.
He does.
I mean, that's the one thing. Like, there was a shot. Now, I will say, it was on 18. His second shot, he was in the rough, and he was under kind of a tree overhang, and that's the one that he hit into the bunker. Yeah. And then the bunker is where he made his. It was
incredible.
The bunker shot was incredible, but the second shot, I'm watching it, and literally, I'm like, dude, would you just shoot already? He must have backed up, and I guess, look, that's probably what makes him great. But the other thing that I think a lot of people had issue with, that at this point I can't necessarily, is the live golf thing. And I understand it. It is sad that we now live in a world where it's like, well, if enough people do something that's non-scrupulous, then it just becomes acceptable. And I know that there is a lot of polarization about the live golf money and is it blood money, et cetera, but man, that is the amount that they're paying. And at this point, because that's supposedly, and I don't know whatever came of this, weren't they supposed to?
Correct. That's my larger issue. They were supposed to merge together, and then it's a complicated conversation we could have for hours on end, but it never wound up coming to fruition, and there's still rival leagues to some extent, and at some point it's going to have to be fixed, or you're going to continue to see, maybe not in the majors, because everybody loves the majors and everybody loves the U.S. Open, because I don't want to speak out of turn, but I think I'm right on this. It's almost always, or maybe it is always on Father's Day's weekend, or like it's very close to that time of year when it happens, and it's such a special event if you grew up caring about the majors or caring about the game of golf, to the point that like those events, the Masters, the PGA, the Open, and the U.S. Open, none of them will ever, I think, be majorly impacted by all of this, but you see it on tour, the day-to-day, week-to-week events where this chasm is continuing to hurt the sport. But I'm past the point of blaming the athletes, especially when it comes to majors. I just want to see high-level golf.
$125 million guaranteed from Liv. Pretty hard to turn that down, right? I get it. I totally understand.
This was a conversation we had last summer, right? Because it's somewhat of an ethical question, but at the same time, like it's life-changing money.
To be fair, it is life-changing, except for the fact that it didn't change his life a lot because he'd already made $35 million.
Sure.
At what point do you need more, right? But
at what point is enough? Are you just adding?
But you also start to think about, like, okay, now I can have life-changing money for everyone related to me. You know what I mean? In that regard. By the way, 30 years ago today was, in fact, the Bronco chase, but there's also reason to celebrate today because of what today is. And it has nothing to do with Arnold Palmer. It has nothing to do with the Bronco chase. It has nothing to do with Ken Griffey Jr. It has nothing to do with the New York Rangers. It has nothing to do with the World Cup, none of that. But today is, in fact, one of the great days on the American calendar. One of the great days on the American calendar. I'll tell you why next.
This hour of The Fan is fueled by
Tell you something. I'm letting the good times roll today, baby. You guys know what today is?
It's the day that in 1944 Iceland declared itself a republic.
And you know what?
Fun fact.
They got great water there. Iceland's become a thing. Have you noticed this? Like 5 years ago, I don't know who. If you are somebody trying to get something done, you're trying to get. If you're my mayoral campaign, okay? When I run for mayor, before we throw all the scooters in the White River, I'm hiring for my mayoral campaign. My campaign manager is going to be the travel / commerce, director of commerce for Iceland. I don't know if you know this or not, Jimmy, but Iceland is green and Greenland's icy, right? Because when it was first discovered, they're like, this place is totally badass. We don't want anybody coming here, so let's just call it Iceland and nobody will come here because they think it's all ice, right? And now they got great bottled water and everybody's going over there all the time for vacations. And 10 years ago, nobody even knew what Iceland was. So they got a great campaign commerce manager, whatever. So I celebrate that day. Matter of fact, I'm glad you said 1944?
1944.
That's what I thought, because I wondered, their literature they sent me has a big 80 on it, and that makes sense now.
Also, a year prior to that, Barry Manilow was born, 1943.
Barry Manilow's 81?
Mm-hmm.
I'll give Barry Manilow the credit for this. I saw him in concert in 2002, maybe. I'm walking out of Channel 6 one day. Susan Batt, Sarah Fraden, and Jennifer Lilly. I'm like, where are you guys going? They said, we're going to the Barry Manilow concert. We have an extra ticket. Do you want to go? You know what? I'll go. Fine. So I go to the concert. We're sitting in the lawn. Barry Manilow comes out. He opens the concert by saying this. Are there any guys in the audience? Let me get it. If you're a guy in the audience, stand up. And they're like, Jake, you got it. So I stand up. And he says, and I quote, see, I just want you guys to know, as I'm looking out over all the men, this is living proof that you guys will do anything to get. And I'm like, okay, yeah. Give him credit for knowing that. Today is National Mascot Day.
Man.
That is a day to be celebrated. I don't know if you guys know this or not. I have literally, I love more than life itself, mascots. Love mascots. When I die, I want my funeral to be nothing but mascots.
They're going to be the pallbearers?
Yes. Well, it's hard because most of them don't have the thumbs, and that can be tricky, right?
Boomer and Blue are just leading the front of the.
Well, now Blue's not one of my favorite mascots, but Boomer's awesome, right? But I mean, I'm talking like
Rowdy.
Oh, Rowdy's great.
Yeah.
Nitro, the Firehawk. I'm cool with the Firehawk. I mean, I'm down with that. Purdue Pete, a little odd, right? But he's got the gloves, so he wouldn't be a bad pallbearer. What's that?
Can we bring Bowser back for your funeral, please?
Bowser will come back from the farm. He's living on a farm.
I know. That's what they told me.
Freddy Fever?
Freddy Fever's cool. I'm cool with Freddy Fever. I want the Oriole Bird, better known as the cute fella. I want him there. Fred Bird in St. Louis, not so much. Mr. Met, cool.
Would you allow the Leprechaun to
The Fanatic?
help lay you to rest?
The Fanatic is an instigator, though.
The Philly Fanatic?
The Leprechaun is fine, except for that he's a little fella, which is, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't want people constantly walking up to him, asking him if he's going to continue to do the podcast, and he's got to say to people, no, that's Derek Schultz, wrong guy. That also would be, you know what I mean? But I'm telling you, who's your favorite mascot?
I mean, I love Boomer. Though outside
cool.
the market, outside the market,
yes.
Benny the Bull.
Okay.
I understand that's a direct rival, but Benny the Bull's antics with the
you guys haven't
popcorn are
mentioned
awesome.
the goat yet. And I love Boomer. Eddie?
Rocky?
Rocky is number one.
Yeah.
Rocky is numero uno. I'm telling you what. My funeral, I want Rocky actually I want him eulogizing
Giving
me.
a eulogy.
I don't know if he talks, but if he does, I want him to eulogize. He doesn't even have to eulogize me. He can just stand there and do the Karate Kid pose.
I was going to say, what stunt do you want him to pull off?
He's the best. I was at a game last year. The greatest game on the Pacers schedule every year is Boomer's birthday because they bring in all the mascots. Mm-hmm. And Rocky was there, and he walked like an entire lap around the arena on chairs. It was unbelievable. Just walking on, stepping over people and walking on the armrest. Did an entire lap.
You think he was trying to steal thunder from the chair guy that's at halftime?
Exactly. There's the chair stacking guy.
That's the one I meant.
Slottick. That's Slottick. Yes, he's better than Slottick. Slottick's kind of a red panda wannabe. But I'm telling you, National Mascot Day, please celebrate accordingly. Yesterday, Freddie Fever was at the game, and so too was Kurt from Arkansas, who used to work with me at O'Malley's and also used to sell candy bars, and now he sells cat food, I think. Hi, Kurt.
How are you doing, Jake? Yeah, it's good to talk to you live.
Is that correct? You used to sell cat food and now you sell candy bars, or you used to sell candy bars and now you sell cat food?
No, I worked for Hershey for 10 years, and now I sell all pet food, basically. So, yeah.
Okay. Is there any now you can't put chocolate and candy in dog food, right?
No, that would be very bad. Please don't do that at home.
Yeah.
Jake, I wanted to officially join the company. You know, I think I have a role. I live in spreadsheets. I analyze data for a living, so spreadsheets and Tableau dashboards. So chief data officer. If you ever have any data you need analyzed, send it my way.
Here's the thing, though. I kind of like director of Hershey. What about director of Hershey spreadsheets? Can we do that?
Hey, I still know all the things about the candy category. So whatever you
what
want
I
it
like.
to be.
Hell yeah. All right, Kurt, what'd you think of the Fever game?
Well, you know, it's funny. I loved it, number one. Being in the building, it was a great atmosphere. Obviously, I've been to so many games going back to my days of being an intern for the Pacers and all that. But I'm a huge basketball fan, and I've probably watched 3 WNBA games my entire life until this season. And that was back when Tamika Catchings was leading them to the championship. So other than that, I hadn't been watching, and I've been watching this year. And I'd say it's a lot of fun. I really like their low post presence with Melissa Smith. I thought she had a great game last night. But I kind of think what they need is what the Pacers sort of need. They sort of need a dog defender on the wing, to kind of shut some teams down. So anyway, I loved it. Just wanted to tell you it was a good experience.
And you were back in town just visiting, is that right?
Yeah, visiting some cousins, but I'm driving up to a pet retailer up in Michigan, so I'm driving up 69 right now.
No, wait, you're driving to a what in Michigan?
A pet food retailer to have some meetings with them tomorrow.
Oh. Now, do you guys have pet food conventions, just out of curiosity?
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, there's the Global Pet Expo in Orlando.
Really? Do they give out trials and samples and stuff like that?
You know, it's funny. There's one in Las Vegas every August called Super Zoo. And you would laugh because you ever seen the movie Best in Show?
Oh, yeah.
It's like that. There's all these, all these independent pet store owners, all these dog groomers. There's a row of 100 people, trimming poodles and having a contest.
Now, what % of people ate dog food as a kid? Is that on your spreadsheet?
No, it is not.
Am I the only one here? Now, hold on. Now, Kurt, be honest. At any point when you were a kid, on a dare, did you take? I don't mean ate it, but took one piece of it and tried it.
I never did that with pet food, but I'm sure it happens a lot.
Well,
and
Kurt,
it's not going to hurt you. It's safe for human consumption.
Is it really?
Totally is.
Oh, good. Well, I guess I can confess now. I just had it last night for dinner. Where are you? Where are you right now? Are you in Indiana or Michigan?
I am coming up on Fort Wayne on I-69.
Okay. Well, drive safely. 10 and 2 position, please, and enjoy your cat convention. I'd like to go to the Las Vegas dog food convention. Did you? Now, Jimmy, be honest.
Okay.
When you were a kid,
sure.
At any point, you're at a buddy's house, rainy Saturday afternoon.
Okay.
I would ask Eddie this question as well, but I don't know when it was that he met Alec and whether or not they were friends in childhood, because that's his only friend. But at
met him
any
in
point,
college, by the way.
What's
so
that?
No. Met him in college, so no.
Okay, so Eddie, when you were a kid, just at home by yourself, I guess, at any point did anybody have a big bag of Alpo dog food and somebody on a bet or a challenge was like, okay, eat one kibble of it and just taste it?
Nope. It happened with Milk Bones.
Same thing, yeah.
Dog treat, yeah. Was not me, but yes, a friend did I wonder what this tastes like, and the result was what you would expect, which is not good.
Eddie?
Negative. I will say
Never?
I used to work at a pet store. They no longer exist. I think there may be one left, and it's way out on the East Coast. And we had these dog treats that were from a bakery. And they're like, oh yeah, it's just pretty much everything that goes into human food. There's just not the additives and stuff that are toxic to their stomach and whatnot. Incredibly dry.
So you did sample the product then?
Technically yes.
Okay.
But not.
I tried a kibble of Alpo dog food at Matt Churchman's house, and I think and Churchman is one of my best friends to this day. He was the first friend that I had when we moved to Indianapolis, And to this day, I think Churchman, like if you truly ask him, is like, yeah, he's the guy that ate dog food. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? I mean, that was like 45 years ago. And we've done a gabillion things as friends since then. We've had many like milestones and coming of age moments. But he remembers the fact that when I was like 6, I ate a kibble of dog food. And yes, dry is a good way of putting it.
Would you jump back into the game if I had you try the Farmer's Dog or HelloFresh?
Good question.
The rice and carrots and peas and fresh
it kind of
dog
looks
food?
good, doesn't it?
The commercials do sell it well.
Right.
We'll concede.
But no, I think I'm probably good at this point. Like I don't think that I necessarily need to try that.
Do you think the guy that gets mad at you for not eating properly would have a total rage fit if he found out that you had tried
Yes.
the Farmer's Dog?
Yes.
Okay.
I have not heard from that guy. I think I might have offended him when I told him, like, look, man, he's like, I don't understand this. Like you talk about trying to be healthy, but you mentioned chips and beer on your show. I mean, I'm not like you know what I mean? Not a total stickler. I mean, everything in moderation, and not necessarily dog food in moderation. Am I the only one? You said yes, and Eddie. So basically, no, you knew
Dog
someone.
treat.
I knew someone in the friend group did it.
Dog
yeah.
treat, yeah. Okay.
Dog treat.
It can't be that uncommon for kids, right?
Curiosity.
Well, curiosity killed the cat.
Indeed. I didn't know if you wanted me to go down that route. I didn't want to.
Kurt, drive
Scare
safely,
Boo.
by the way, to your cat convention that you're going to. There was another thing that happened over the weekend in terms of Indianapolis sports that I think kind of flew under the radar, and we're going to talk about that pretty heavy at the bottom of the 2 o'clock hour, and I'll tell you what it is on the other side.
Circle City Whiskey Company seeks out.
Audience, well done by Eddie Garrison. Little Barry Manilow on the birthday.
81, really?
Crazy.
I never would have guessed Barry Manilow to be 81 years old. I was in a fabulous rendition of music video of this song when I was in college, and somebody unearthed it for me.
Man, I was really hoping it was going to be like a remake of the music video during your MTV days, because the clips that we saw earlier or not earlier, but earlier this year were entertaining.
Fabulous, weren't they?
Yes, they were. Were you at all surprised? I know that we've bounced around, but the other sports topic that happened over the weekend wasn't really local. Some local ties when you look through and dig through the weeds, but at the national scale, that we're actually going to have a Game 5 of the NBA Finals, because the manner at which it occurred with dominance by Dallas.
Well, the same
was
with
crazy.
Same with the Stanley Cup
and
final.
the Stanley Cup final.
I
As
mean,
well. Yep.
what was that, 8-1?
Yep.
And then the total blowout for Game 5 or Game 4. At what point, if Dallas is to win Game 5, do you start to think maybe there's a series here, or is it no? There's no way.
It gets interesting. Look, the idea of winning 4 straight in that league, we know the numbers. It's never happened before, and it's very tough. Like, could I see them potentially forcing a Game 7? Yeah, like that shifts is a real possibility. But the idea of them winning twice in the Garden against this Celtics team, I don't buy it. So it depends what your level of a series is. If your level of a series is, man, they could still win this thing, I would say no. But the idea of them being able to get it back to Dallas and then maybe force a Game 7, it definitely turns if they're able to win tonight.
Here's the thing. They don't have to win 4 straight. They got to win 3 straight.
Sure. And
you win 3 straight, and now all of a sudden Boston they got that kind of back against the wall. What do they say? The hardest win to get is the elimination win.
That's
right?
been Jason Kidd's. I mean, we talked about it earlier during the Pacers series when they lost to Boston, and during the series against the Knicks where the Pacers prevail. But that's often the rallying cry. The hardest one, as you pointed out, is the knockout blow. And I mean, look, I think that this is not a hot take. This is, I think, a pretty safe take. I think a lot of people expect Boston to take care of things easily tonight and hoist another banner into the rafters. But yes, to answer your question, the drama gets ticked up a notch if they're able to get it back to Dallas for Game 6.
Speaking of knockout blows, that was landed exactly that in the 8th round of 12 in Saturday night's WBA lightweight title bout.
Nice job.
That took place, thank you, Eddie, at the MGM Grand Arena in Nevada. The guy that was knocked out, Frank Martin, not the basketball coach, but rather the boxer, who was born in Detroit, but now is listed as Indianapolis, is where he trains, where he lives, and I think it's fascinating. And I was super, you know what, like I was going to watch it. It was on Amazon Prime, and so I'm like, oh, cool. And I get on Amazon Prime, and I pull it up, and then it was on pay-per-view in addition to that, and it had already started. And the problem with boxing pay-per-views, and I know this from when I was in college, the boxing pay-per-views, I mean, it was peak Tyson era. And the problem with Tyson back then was you'd get pay-per-view, and by the time you figured it all out and got everything up and running and whatever, you're like, wait a minute, Michael Spinks is like on the canvas. What's going on here? And it would be over with. But boxing to me is fascinating because, and I love it. It's disingenuous to say that I regularly, actively follow it, but there's a certain nostalgia about boxing to me, and that's why I love the Golden Gloves when it's, you know, at the Armory and you get kind of just the dark arena and like cigar smoke and guys sitting there keeping tabs on it, and there's an element of true like rainy day, old 1950s New York City sports stuff about boxing to me that has always been endearing or that I've always appreciated. But there is no doubt about the fact that through the progress of UFC and just the, you know, all of the different MMA type fighting, that boxing has taken a back seat to it. But when you look at Frank Martin, the latest, you know, Layman Brewster, obviously Marvin Johnson, Sugar Ray Seals didn't, you know, he ended up living here, but there is a decent tradition and legacy of boxing in Indianapolis and boxers that have come through here, and this is the latest. He was 18-0. That was the first defeat that he has had. He's 18-0 as Frank Martin with 12 KOs. and certainly disappointing to see him not win the belt, but he'll have another shot at it. But Keith Boggs is the chairman for the Indiana Gold Gloves and is going to join us coming up bottom of the hour, because I'd like to talk to him, Jimmy, not just about Frank Martin's career and how a guy ends up in Indianapolis that grew up and fought in Detroit, but also just about the sport and its placement in 2024. Because I think, to your point, I mean, you know, UFC would be the thing now, right?
Look, I love boxing to that same allure that you do. And another sport that's very close to my heart that boxing has kind of gone that way with is horse racing. It's another turn of the century type of sport
Correct.
that was beloved by many, and then it's faded in different ways. You're still going to get big attention whenever there is an American for a heavyweight title, or whenever there is, big primetime fights. But over the last, post Tyson and beyond that, I mean, there were some bubbles of interest during the historic run of Floyd Mayweather, but that wasn't the heavyweight division. It's a different division entirely. And you've seen UFC over that same period dwarf it. And the pay-per-view numbers reflect that, to the point that boxing today, how it's being reintroduced to the younger generation of fan is, and I hate to say this, but it's true, and the pay-per-view numbers reflect that, are what the Paul brothers have done. Jake and Logan Paul kind of making it more of a circus and an entertainment factor, regardless of how much of validity you believe is in those fights. And one of the Paul brothers, I always get the two of them confused, so forgive me, but that Tyson fight that was supposed to happen winds up not happening because of, I think, ulcers was the diagnosis for Tyson. So
now, was that canceled altogether or postponed?
Postponed. I don't think it's been officially canceled, but it was supposed to happen sometime this summer, and now it's been postponed. The sport has been dwarfed by the next generation of combat fighting, and it's been UFC. That said, locally, and especially here with the Gold Gloves and other Gold Glove organizations around the country, there is still high-level quality grassroots boxing that fans can enjoy that has been on display. But I think that the action of boxing in the American lexicon has faded drastically over my lifetime.
Keith Boggs, as I mentioned, Indiana Gold Gloves, going to talk about exactly that with us bottom of the hour.
The Ride with JMV.
Hi there, how are you? On a presumably still gorgeous but warm Monday. My name is Jake Query, Jimmy Cook, Eddie Garrison, the other two voices that you hear on this program. We call it Querying Company, and it took a staff of hundreds hours to come up with that name. Eddie Garrison is you're the president, right, Eddie?
CEO.
That's right, CEO of the company. Jimmy's the president.
Right here.
I'm good, Jake. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. I sent a photo on, I was so happy to be home Friday night. It was a gorgeous night. Went to the Italian Fest. And I posted a photo that just simply said, beautiful night to be home taking an Italian Fest. I love Indy in the summer. There are so many cool things that take place in Indianapolis. And I was appreciative of the replies that I got from everybody. Very nice things said.
Did you have a Miranda down there? Or an Amanda, Mandy, movie buff?
You mean at the Italian Fest?
No, in your comments.
Oh. That's right. That's right. It was, what was it? A movie buff looking for someone to snuggle with.
Yeah.
No, that was those. I facilitate those things, right?
Okay.
My Twitter account is essentially Tinder for those that respond. But I didn't have any of the porn bots responding. But I did get this response, which is nice. It was a nice response, but I was a little thrown off by it. From Tim, who I like Tim. Dang, Jake. Now, this is it was a picture of Shannon and myself. Dang, Jake, you look totally awesome in this pic. Your wife must have seen this all along. It was an unusual response from Tim, which I appreciated, but I also, and Shannon probably loved that response. It was a nice compliment, but it just took me by surprise. And then I was like, and then do I even correct? Like, well, it's not my wife, but for the most part.
Sure.
For all intent and purposes.
Did that ruin the evening?
No, I was very flattered by it.
Good. Okay.
I was very flattered by it. It was a perfect night. It was a great night.
Did you let Shannon know she has competition?
It was a nice compliment from Tim. It just threw me off. That's all.
Yeah.
Is that what those flowers were about out there? What was your favorite Italian Fest culinary item, by the way? Did you get any meatballs? Did you have some spaghetti? Did you have a cannoli? What'd you have?
So they have fried ravioli is what it was known here. I think I told you when I moved to St. Louis, literally every person in St. Louis is like, we're world known for our toasted raviolis, T-Ravs. And I'm like, what's that? And like, St. Louis, it's known for its T-Ravs. I'm like, yeah, I don't know that it is.
Also, T-Ravs, that's like a real...
That's what they call it.
Everyday phrase?
Ravioli,
okay,
yeah.
All right.
And they're like, no. Like, everybody knows when you mention St. Louis, everybody knows about the T-Ravs. And I'm like, well, I'm the only in this discussion that didn't grow up here, and I did not know of that. Maybe others do. I don't know. I mean, and they are good. But the only thing that I had, because we went to dinner afterwards, so I did get the meatballs, and they were great. The Italian Fest just in general is I think it's great. They had a band there. It was fun, and there's a bunch of families there. It was a perfect night. And then the other thing that I mentioned off the top of the show, but I'll repeat it. Indianapolis as a city made a concerted effort 40 years ago to brand itself and build itself based on sports. More so than other, that was going to be our industry. Other cities, obviously in Indianapolis, Lilly is the major employer, but Detroit was known for the automobile, and Philadelphia is known for its history, and Chicago's known for its steel mills on the south side, and then obviously it's the Miracle Mile and et cetera. Indianapolis basically said, we are going to build our brand around sports, beginning with the National Sports Fest. Well, beginning really with the building of Market Square Arena, and then that becoming the Final Four in 1980, and then doing the National Sports Festival and parlaying that into the Pan American Games. And then we were kind of off and running from there because the Colts took off and the Pacers got good in the early 90s, and Final Fours became part of the rotation, and the NCAA moved here. And it's been great. And, Jimmy, to your point, I mean, obviously this year alone, the NBA All-Star Game, the Combine is here every year. I mean, there are those events that are staples for sure. But in terms of events that are bringing in the average sports fan, people who have young people that are swimmers or people that are coming from other cities that are involved in swimming in general, You have 1,000 athletes that are here in Indianapolis trying to punch their ticket to become a member of the United States Olympic team. And Indianapolis as a city, like most cities in this country, but Indianapolis perhaps even more so than others to a great extent, has really taken a bruise and a lump from COVID. Because what Indianapolis has to offer is a walkable downtown, and we had the areas of entertainment for sports and conventions that were coming here. We had the restaurants downtown and everything right here. And because fewer people were coming downtown to work due to COVID, then fewer people were eating lunch downtown, and thus fewer people were coming down for dinner at times. And downtown's taken a real hit, and it's sad. I mean, you walk around downtown Indianapolis for the last couple of years, and more restaurants are closing, and storefronts are closing, and this city has really taken a hit. And I didn't know a week ago that this would be what I would be observing or opining. But Jimmy, it's my observation, and maybe I'm overselling it, but I really do think that this is a distinct possibility that 20 years from now, 30 years from now, when somebody's doing a radio show in Indianapolis, a sports radio show, they'll be talking about the fact that, like the way that I talk about the Pan American Games being a jump start to getting Indianapolis to the next level, I think that the United States Swimming Olympic Trials of 2024 may be seen as a benchmark that brought things back for Indianapolis and resurrected and turned us into Lazarus. That Indianapolis, this is the event that showcased to the world that, yes, in fact, we're still here. And I don't mean the All-Star Game, for example, was basically a private event. And it was cold outside, and, it was awesome. Don't get me wrong. It was awesome having the All-Star Game here. But you didn't have tens of thousands of people walking around downtown and going into the different restaurants and taking pictures of the circle and enjoying the weather and looking at our monuments and seeing Georgia Street and seeing an Eiffel Tower in front of the Pan Am Plaza, and et cetera. And the same is true of the Combine. I mean, you have a bunch of guys walking around going, "Hey, coach, you good? You good, coach? You good, coach? Okay, good, coach." And then Eddie White taking selfies of all of them. That's the Combine. But this is people that are reintroduced to Indianapolis and seeing, Jimmy, how many times have you watched on the broadcast, and every 5 minutes they say, again, this is a football stadium with a pool in it, and look at what this city has done. This city has not only transformed a football stadium into a pool venue, but it's also transformed itself into drawing us back in and showcasing that nobody in the United States does this better than Indianapolis. And I think this is a watershed moment for the city of 9 consecutive days or whatever it is of awesome showcasing, and kudos to the Indiana Sports Corps for putting it on and knocking this one out of the park.
Earlier, you and I had this discussion, and I want to make sure that the audience didn't misunderstand what I was saying. I totally agree with you that this is the apex of the return to the national stage for Indianapolis. What they have done and what they are continuing to do over these next couple of nights, hosting tens of thousands of people. What was it, 25,000 the other night at Lucas Oil to witness the swim trials. It is a national event. It is a punch your ticket and go to the greatest stage that global sport has to offer, which is the Olympic Games, and the city has knocked it out of the park. And so to all of Indy Sports Corp and Visit Indy and everybody that has played a hand in setting this up, it is the apex, Jake, and will be remembered as the event that I think reset the stage. I totally agree with you on that. But it is the apex of a return to form for the city that has occurred since January of this year. When you look at all the great events that helped revitalize and get the city back onto a path of, hey, remember us? Yeah, we do sports pretty well around here.
Right.
The smaller events compared to this would be All-Star Weekend, would be the Combine, would be first and second rounds of the NCAA men's basketball tournament, would be the NIT championship and Final Four games at Hinkle Fieldhouse. It's all been building to this moment in the summer. I was more just trying to encapsulate to the listeners of, yes, this is the creme de la creme. This is the big one. This will be the watershed moment. But the entire year has just been home run after home run by the city. And yes, I remember I was there for All-Star Weekend. I know it was cold. I know there was construction. I'm sure they didn't get quite as many people wandering the city as they wanted to that perfect weekend and week stretch when we had the Super Bowl in 2012, when it was like just the stars lined up and weather was incredible. They didn't get that same result because you never know what's going to happen in really any month, but especially February in Indiana. But all of it was building towards this center stage, eyeballs around the world on the city, having it in a venue that's never been done before, of just this massive capacity of a football stadium stateside. The whole year has been building towards this moment, and I'm totally right there with you. When you look back on it, it will include those other events because it's a return to form and building things back up for the city. But to do it at such a level when there's so much at stake for all these athletes and there's civic pride, not just for Hoosiers with so many represented at the swimming trials, but also national pride of knowing that tickets are being punched to represent Team USA over in Paris next month. It's incredible, and it's a reminder of Indianapolis being a worthy recipient of future bids of big events.
There were 32 athletes with Indiana ties, as I understand it, coming into the swimming Olympic trials. And there are a significant number of those that are from Hamilton County. Luke Whitlock of Noblesville, who swims for the Fisher Swim Club, was in the 400-meter freestyle. You have the very first one, and there are brothers, right, Jimmy, that are participating?
I believe so, yes.
The Shackle brothers. Is it Shackle or Shackle?
Brother and sister, right? Aaron and Alex?
I'm sorry, brother and sister.
I think there's 3.
There very well might be a third, but I know Alex and Aaron have been the ones that, like in the Stars piece earlier today, recapping the whole
Okay, so Aaron's
weekend.
in the 400 free also. Jake Mitchell of Carmel.
Yep.
Drew Keebler's in several events. He was
Kibler.
was scratched from the 400 meter. I remember doing the IHSA swim finals when Drew was, I think I did them back-to-back years and interviewing him on the deck after he had won at Carmel, individual events.
Lily King is tonight taking stage to try to punch yet another ticket for her for the Olympics, for her third Olympic team.
Kayla Hahn and Kelly Rash, I believe, are two of the names. My apologies if I got any of the names wrong, but it is amazing the Hamilton County representation alone. You know, obviously Lily from Evansville, so Indiana alone, and then IU has athletes that are there.
It's pretty cool. You mentioned it earlier, Jake, as well. The dominance that Carmel Swim Club and Carmel High School has done the last 40 years, both on the men's and women's side, but the girls swim team, like you mentioned, 38 straight state titles, an unprecedented thing. It's an absolutely mind-numbingly crazy number, but for it to translate as well, and there's other schools as well, Fishers, Noblesville, it's not just Carmel that's represented. You mentioned, a large portion of Hamilton County. It's crazy to see that much, because it's not like, oh, the event's in Indiana, let's call up some Indiana swimmers and see if they want to be a part of this thing. They've earned their right to get there.
Well, what Carmel's done is incredible. I mean, there is no high school in the United States. Eddie, give me a town off the top of your head. A state. Give me a state off the top of your head.
State? New Mexico.
New Mexico. Okay, so give me a president off the top of your head, Jimmy.
George Washington.
So Washington High School in Clovis, New Mexico. Or for that matter, Roswell, New Mexico. They're the aliens, by the way.
Nice.
Whatever high school you want to pick in New Mexico. Whatever the record is in New Mexico for the most consecutive state championships for boys or girls, it is not matched 38. Because there is no high school in the United States of America that has had any sport that has won more consecutive state titles than 38.
It's insane.
There is a third Shackle, by the way, Andrew.
That's incredible, by the way.
Andrew was born in 2006.
Yeah, and this was in. Now, did he advance through the prelims? I mean, I don't.
Competing in the men's 200-meter freestyle.
Incredible. Yeah, that's incredible. But 38 straight for Carmel girls, and then the boys have won 18, I believe. No, Chris Plumb they've won 13 straight, the boys have. And Chris Plumb has won 18 with the girls, 13 with the boys. I believe that's correct.
Had the opportunity to talk with him earlier. Podcast Center, 1075thefan.com. If you want to re-listen to that conversation a little bit later today, it was very enlightening and good to get that direct perspective of what Hamilton County as a whole, and more specifically Carmel Swim Club, has developed over the last 20, 25, 30 years, and seeing all this come to fruition on the grandest stage while at your own. I mean, that's pretty cool. That's been the common question that the poolside reporters have asked the athletes, especially if they have a local tie. What's it like swimming in front of all your hometown or very close to your hometown? I mean, we talk about the size of Lucas Oil, but to be a native here to get to do it, really cool.
Two things that I thought were really interesting and very insightful about these trials. One was when the swimmers, yesterday I was watching last night, and it was the backstroke. And they were talking about how in a natatorium, when you're doing the backstroke, you can see based on the lights and the way most natatoriums are set up, it gives you an idea of when you are reaching, right? And, getting ready to turn.
Like in staying on your line, too, staying
Correct.
straight.
And staying straight, right. And in this one, you're looking up basically at just lights and, the only person that would have a better understanding and grasp of that would be Andrew Luck because of the number of times he got sacked, right? Just staring and looking up at the ceiling there. But it's a different perspective, and it's a totally different depth.
You think anybody called him in preparation
That's
for their
right.
for their
there are a lot of swimmers
races?
at Stanford, right? They probably know him. The other thing that Chris Plumb mentioned that I found fascinating, I did not know this. I've always heard when people talk about pools and they say, well, it's a really fast pool. And so I asked Chris Plumb, I'm like, what does it mean that a pool is a fast pool? And he said, well, it's pretty simple. It has to be a certain depth because when you are swimming, and especially when you are kicking, but you're creating waves, you want the energy of those waves to go down either far underneath you or into the spill-off so that the inertia doesn't come back and then hit you. Okay, so like you're not creating dirty air, basically, to use a racing term, and that a faster pool is deep enough for that resistance to go below you or to stretch outside of you where it doesn't come back to resist you. And for them to be able, and the natatorium has that. The natatorium was always known as an advanced fast pool, especially in the early 80s. But for them to know how to do that and have the foresight to do that for a temporary pool that is inside Lucas Oil Stadium is remarkable. And I know that the morning guys, Kevin and Andy, I could go back probably and listen to this on the podcast. I think they had the developers on to talk about this. So I apologize for my naivete in my admission of that in asking this question. But how did they get the pools and build them in there? I mean, I know that's probably everybody's question, and I'm sure they've shown it on NBC. I haven't seen it yet. Do you guys know?
I don't. I only know about the waters we talked about a couple of days ago, but in terms of the actual structure, I do not.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
By the way,
can you imagine if it springs a leak?
But to an earlier comment you just made, I feel like dirty air in a pool is a sanitary thing. I feel like we got to clear the pool for a little bit if you're having that racing term suddenly appear in aquatics.
Well, I mean, it's water out of the White River that they purified and sanitized. That also is unbelievable. All of it's amazing. All of it's totally amazing.
Great time to be the chlorine tablet company that helped to get all that ready to go.
Do they have a guy? Do they have a guy? Like
I have
do you
to
think
imagine they have a guy.
They're like, what are you doing tomorrow? Well, the pool guy's coming by. What if the pool guy comes by and puts the little solution in there? It's like, the pH balance is a little off. What do? Do they delay it?
Before he stops at your house on 86th Street, he needs to just,
That's right.
I had to stop by Lucas real
quick. Do they have a guy that comes out with a net and just sits around and skims it the whole time?
You know what?
Or a lifeguard that
was
just sits there and spins a whistle?
Believe it or not, they cut that from the budget after talking with Jim Irsay and company. They thought about having the roof open, but the leaves
would
have gotten in there.
You're right.
Would have been...
I thought Greg Poley had a great post. I don't know if it was on Facebook because we're friends on Facebook or if it was on X. Said that
Are you friends in real life as well?
Yes.
Okay.
That the easiest job besides Jim Sorgi is being a lifeguard at the swim trials.
Probably right. Yes, that probably would be, although it's a high-pressure job if something does go wrong, I guess. But, yes, you would think that there are some pretty keen swimmers, obviously, in the pool.
It's like the low-key security job at a building that has high-level security. It's like, hey, you'll be fine as long as this doesn't happen. You're totally good.
It's like being a mechanic in an Amish town, right? Probably the phone's not ringing a lot. Not a lot of stuff you got to go fix, right?
It's Telegram, right?
That's right. Now, did you also, we talked about, did you watch the U.S. Open yesterday? You said you did, right?
I caught the back end of it, yes. I caught Rory faltering, kind of choking it away over the last couple of holes, and then Bryson DeChambeau capitalizing. I mean, you outlined it, Jake. It's very much, it's a cliche, but it was adamantly true yesterday. It's a game of inches. They both basically have the same putt on at different times, but the same putt on 18, little bit more difficult of a putt in terms of length for DeChambeau, but still inside of 4 feet for both of them. Rory misses twice. He misses once on 16 and once again on 18, and DeChambeau's able to get his second U.S. Open, and Rory ends up once again coming up short of adding another major to his closet. If you're at all a nerd, by the way, on sports media, or you just love good storytelling, Rory didn't do any media availability. So all that there is just, what did he do after the match? Where did he go? There is some very crafty storytelling of like him bolting straight to his car, straight to his, entourage to get out of there and peeling away into the night.
He ate like a granola bar, right? While I watched it.
Yeah.
I thought I saw him just sitting there like, I mean, that putt though.
Is there there are worse feelings in sport, but it has to be up there in terms of individual sports of missing putts late and then having to sit there and watch as you just hope for the other guy to mess up, and then he does it, and all you have to do is
because it looked like he was going to get a reprieve.
Yeah.
Because when DeChambeau went into not only into the rough, but then hit out of that into the bunker, and the bunker, you're like, okay, he's got 2 to par to win it.
Bunker save was insane.
Yeah, I mean that was an unbelievable shot.
The morning show said this this morning. I can't remember the exact number, but it was around this. Rory was 479 of 479 within 3 feet.
Yep.
And then he made 59 consecutive putts within 5 feet.
Yep.
And missed them both.
Yep. Missed two on 16 and 18.
You gotta live. You gotta seize the moment, man.
You have to.
But now, all of this, of course, overshadowing the disappointment of the Santiago de la Fuente.
His day was over on Friday.
No. That's what he wants you. That's what you're supposed to think. Santiago knows exactly what he's doing.
He's playing the long game.
He is. I got the website yesterday on the SDLF.
For those that don't know, Santiago de la Fuente is an amateur golfer who burst onto the Jake Query scene in the lead up to the Masters, and now we followed him along a little bit.
His last name is De La Fuente, right?
Top shelf.
If you've never had an Arturo Fuente cigar, highly recommended. Okay. His first name's Santiago. If you've not been to Santiago, Chile, who's been to Santiago twice in 1 year? That alone is cool. Something about Mary, it pays tribute to that. There's everything to love, and he's an amateur, right? Everything to love about Santiago de la Fuente. And the fact that he went out, and this is what you hope for. When you're watching sports in general, you want relatability, right? Like people, for example, on this radio show, the only way that I've been able to last this long doing radio, I don't really have any skill at all, but I'm relatable. I'm folksy. People tell me all the time I'm folksy. They come up to me and they're like, you're just like you sound on the radio. That's because I'm just a guy. I'm relatable. You want athletes that are relatable. And when a guy goes out and by hole 2 has to change his socks because he's pissed down both legs, then right there you're like, okay, right?
You're saying that the average bear doesn't want a comeback for the ages on 16, 17, and 18. You want the guy missing the cut because you can relate to that guy that was shot plus 15.
He went out. He was nervous
plus
like 13, the rest of us, right?
Excuse me.
He went out and was nervous like anybody else, and that's why you love Santiago de la Fuente.
He shot the same number Jake did this weekend.
That's right. That's what you want. Now, the other thing, and you guys haven't even – I'm a little disappointed in you.
I will tell you this. He did shoot 78 and 75, which of our listenership that are golfers would give their left pinky to be able to shoot a 78 or 75.
Of course, right? Now, you guys, I'm a little disappointed in you that you have not congratulated me about something that happened this weekend.
Eddie's usually better at remembering than
Well, you didn't propose, so that's clearly not what we're congratulating
Has
you
nothing
on.
to do with any accomplishment of mine, but
you were
kind of
excited about the USL championship over the weekend? Is that what it was? USFL, excuse me. Or not USFL. What is it? What's the league?
It's now the UFL.
UFL, excuse me.
United Football League.
Sorry.
Which is the combination of the XFL, and the USFL.
Yes. Yep.
Now, who's my team?
Your team won. Blowout fashion.
Who is my team?
The Birmingham
22
Stallions.
to 0, correct?
You guys haven't even noticed.
I've
wearing-
noticed. I just don't care.
I'm wearing the T-shirt today.
Jake, I will apologize on behalf of the
Three-peat,
company.
baby.
As the president of the company, it's important in dark times to step in and kind of make sure the waters are calmed again. Jake, I apologize for our lapse there, and congratulations.
Three-peat for the Birmingham Stallions. Eddie, you just mentioned it. Shutout, right? Does that mean you were watching?
Ironically, Olivia and I were flipping through XM and landed on that, and it was 0-0 when we got to where we're going for dinner, and then we left, and it was 22 to 0.
Yeah. Where'd you go to dinner?
Logan's Roadhouse.
How was it?
Good.
Is that the place where you can throw peanut shells on the floor?
Not anymore.
Or is that the other Roadhouse?
It's the other Roadhouse.
You used to be able to do it at both, but not anymore.
Do they have the butter roll, the big butter rolls?
Both of them do, yes.
Yep.
So, you're an aficionado of the Roadhouses, apparently.
Well, she loves Logan's, so that's where we went last night.
Okay. And
Dinner.
and you had what? Did you have a steak?
I had a nice chicken sandwich, grilled chicken sandwich.
Okay. But no peanuts on the floor?
Correct.
By the way, how was the champagne?
Well, mostly spraying. I was spraying champagne around. Three-peat, baby. Now, here's the thing. Don't ask me to name a member of the
Yeah,
Stallions.
it's all right. I won't.
I just know that when I was a kid and the USFL was launched, my dad's company was based in Birmingham, and I always thought Birmingham was cool, so I liked the Birmingham Stallions. And now that the USFL is a new thing, they are the team. They had a linebacker last year named Scooby, who was really good. He played at Arizona, and then he retired. And then their quarterback from last year, Jamar Smith, he follows me on Twitter, so that's cool. And then, so I'm all in. I'm all in on the Stallions.
The only other thing I could tell you outside of the fact that the Birmingham Stallions won was that it was Tom Brady's debut in the Fox booth. They had him in there for a little bit. I saw some clips of that. So,
I watched. And then I looked up their TV numbers. I was surprised by their TV numbers. I was surprised by the ratings. Actually, higher than I would have guessed.
Yeah?
Higher than I would have guessed in their television numbers.
Is it because of Tom Brady?
No, this over the course of the year before now.
it's probably because of the three-peat on the line.
Probably because I've been talking about it so much.
Mhm.
Yeah, you just carry that much cachet.
That's the impact that I have. I'm just telling you. Keith Boggs is the chairman of the Indiana Golden Gloves, and one of the guys that he is a big backer for was fighting for a title on Saturday night, and it got me thinking about boxing in Indiana, and I wanted to talk to Keith about it, and I said, you want to come on the show? And he said, sure. And I said, how about Monday at 2:30? He said, sounds good. So we're doing it next.
This hour of The Fan is fueled by
Saturday night,
Let's get ready to rumble.
the Rumble was at MGM Grand Garden Arena in Nevada for the WBA lightweight title. And even though it didn't go the way that people in central Indiana would have hoped, with Frank Martin, who lives in Indianapolis, suffering his first defeat as a professional. He was knocked out in round number 8. But nonetheless, representing Indianapolis well. And, as I was reading about it and just thinking about boxing in general, and I mentioned earlier that I truly, more so almost like nostalgically, I really enjoy the sport of boxing and what it means and what it represents. And Keith Boggs is the chairman of the Indiana Gold Gloves. And I said, you know what, I want to have Keith on to talk not only about boxing, but about Frank, because Keith, and I appreciate you coming on. The first thing I wanted to ask you is, I know that Frank Martin grew up in Detroit. How did he find his way to Indianapolis, and what does it mean for the sport locally to have that kind of a stage and that kind of representation?
Well, first thing, thank you guys for having me on. You know how much I love to talk about boxing, so I appreciate it. He moved to Fort Wayne, and from Fort Wayne, he ended up coming down here. I think the chances of maybe some bigger gyms, more competition was what brought him down, at least from Fort Wayne to here. As a second part of the question, absolutely. When you see somebody that you've seen around, maybe you've even sparred with them, been in the gym with them, if you see them reach some level of success, that helps you believe in yourself and that the process can happen.
Keith, when you look at boxing in Indiana, and I remember as a kid, obviously, we all remember of my age group the commercials with Marvin Johnson, but there's a guy that reached the ultimate pinnacle as a boxer with Indianapolis ties. And then, more recently, Layman Brewster was a guy, I believe, from like Riverside that, here in Indianapolis that got to the ultimate level as well. Is Indianapolis underrated or underappreciated in terms of the talent that is coming through here and the programs that are in place?
Well, it's starting to get better, Jake. Early, in the 70s, and that's really only when I start remembering. So Norman Goings, Sammy Naismith, and Marvin Johnson were the big three. And they ruled amateur boxing. They each won the National Golden Gloves. Marvin is the only person we've had to ever win it twice. But our team was excellent. I think we finished second one year. And then in 1993, Darnell Wilson was the last person to win a national title for years. In 2015, Frank Martin made it to the semifinals, and he lost a really controversial decision. In 2016, he came back to become our first national champ since, like I said, 1993. And the great part about it, if I could have handpicked anybody to break that streak, it would have been Frank Martin, because this is an outstanding human being. And not to say that the other people aren't, because they absolutely are. But Frank was always kind of a little cut above fighting ability, his personality, his friendship, his genuineness. So it was really exciting to finally have a national champ. So 2021, Skylar Lacey becomes our first super heavyweight to ever win the national title. And then we have one again in 2023. Kyle Walden from Jeffersonville won the nationals. Susanna Rodriguez Griffin finished second at the nationals in 22 and 23. So I think we are, Jake, making a very different stride, especially in the amateur community. We've worked really hard to try to build this. We've got great coaching, great gyms around the city and state. So we're starting to rock, and once you see the amateurs start going like that, then the pros will follow right behind it. So,
Keith, just last year, Indiana Golden Gloves as a whole, I beg your pardon, Golden Gloves America celebrated their 100th year anniversary. Where does the health of the Golden Gloves, and as you mentioned, the youth initiative nationally compared to the health of the sport as a whole in the country?
Well, I think, again, we're seeing a resurgence in all of it. Think about that fight with Frank the other night. I mean, the MGM was sold out. The numbers were great. People were excited. The problem is some of the little local shows aren't quite like they were. We don't in Indianapolis have near as many of the little shows that we used to have. But the national tournament, and as they celebrated 100 years, we celebrated our 90th last year, so that was kind of cool. They're getting stronger. They have good leadership. They're working on ways to make the Nationals stronger with good tie-ins, with advertisers, making it stronger, making it more appealing for the kids. And also, again, we have an Olympic year this year, so that's always strong. Whenever every Olympic sport does great, usually in the Olympic year. So,
Keith, the old saying, Keith Boggs is our guest talking about boxing here on Curry & Company. The old saying is that, you know, a high tide raises all ships, right? And
absolutely.
You know, you and I have probably talked about this. Boxing in general, if you go back and you think about, I mean, from Muhammad Ali and then through obviously to, whether it be Foreman, Holmes, into Tyson, Sugar Ray Leonard, all of them, right? There have been massive stars within boxing. And in the last 15 years, maybe even 20, obviously the MMA fighting and UFC fighting has become the huge pay-per-view draw, the packed bars, the get-togethers. Has that become a threat to boxing, and has the interest in that level of fighting, which isn't boxing, but it's in a ring, has it been detrimental to boxing?
Well, that's a weird question. And here's I mean, it's a hard question, not a weird question. I get it all the time. Mixed martial arts is definitely bigger than boxing right now. Boxing always has had ebbs and tides and flows. But the thing that it's helped, Jake, is like a lot of the local gyms, because the MMA fighters are going into their local boxing gyms to learn how to do stand-up fighting. So not only are they getting better, they're making the competition better in the actual boxing gym. And a lot of them decide to hang on and actually have amateur boxing matches, or sometime down the road pro boxing matches. So I think the thing that MMA has done really well is they make their people. And as a fan, we want to know who we're rooting for or rooting against. And I don't think boxing has done a good enough job of creating the personalities like the MMA has. So I don't think it's a crushing problem. Like I said, I think boxing's better, healthier, more promoters, more worldwide than we've seen in a long, long time. It's just not the sport it was in the 50s, 70s. So,
what's next for Frank Barton in terms of, here is somebody that, again, as I mentioned, a great representation for the state, getting the opportunity to try to take the belt in lightweight and getting knocked out in 8 rounds on Saturday. But then what's next now in terms of trying to get that opportunity again?
Well, I obviously haven't spoke to Frank. I talked to Pat McPherson, who works his corner from Indianapolis Boxing and Grappling, and he said that Frank was doing fine. He was okay physically, mentally. I think, Jake, in all honesty, he showed a lot in that fight. He impressed people with his footwork, his movement. I think he won at least 5 of the first 7 rounds. But, when you're getting hit by a generational talent like Gervonta Davis is, somebody that hits so hard, it wasn't particularly surprising. Of course, it was crushing, but I think his future is still very bright. He's such a marketable, nice personality. People love him, so I think his future's real bright. So,
and lastly, Keith, for one of the things that I love about boxing, and the Gold Gloves in particular, is you see a lot of gyms that and a lot of young people that are taking on the sport of boxing that are learning an internal discipline. They're learning regiment. Maybe they're not going to be the next great boxer, but they are involved in something that is, for a lot of these kids, keeping them away from, as I call it, the vacuum that plagues a lot of inner city kids in not just Indianapolis, but across the country. If you could, Keith, is there a gym that you think should get some recognition because it's giving kids an opportunity? And for those that are listening that might be interested in getting a young person involved, how does one get involved in boxing?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily pick just one gym. We have 15 gyms in the city. And, Jake, they all do a great job because there's not a lot of money or any money to be made in amateur boxing. So they're making it out of the love, one of the sport. But it's about, this is our way of helping our community through boxing. There's many ways to help your community, but this is the one that I've gotten behind because, one, I love boxing. I see the good that it can do. I see how hard these people work to make this go. So I would feel comfortable sending into any of these gyms around the city. If I may, June 29th and 30th, the Black Expo is having their tournament, their boxing, which is absolutely free to the public. Go in, watch what they do, see the fights, talk to one of the coaches there, talk to the people from the Indiana LBC, which is our USA Boxing. They're the ones that actually govern amateur boxing. Talk to them. They're very friendly and will help you any way they can. Come out to Golden Gloves in March and April, see what we do, talk to us. But it is a good, strong influence, like football. Well, really, Jake, like any sport. You know, if you stay disciplined with it, if you work, you know, you're not out on the street, you go home, you're tired. So it's just a strong tie to the community, helps them learn about other people, see how other cultures, races act. When you're all molded in the gym, it doesn't matter what color, race, sex, creed. When they hit you in the face, it don't matter. So
That's right.
It's a great way to help the youth, and I think I'll be involved as long as I can.
Keith, you have always been good to me, which is much appreciated, and I love the work that you do, and I'm always eager to try to spread the word because I do love the sport. June 29th and 30th, Black Expo, free tournament for boxing. Keith Boggs again, and it is every spring. Unfortunately, it's usually the finals are usually when I'm in Long Beach, I think, but the Golden Gloves, because I love going to the Armory and seeing it. But from the time when I was first just trying to get into the sports media, Keith, you have always treated me like I actually was a real media member, which I'm not, but you have always been there to support me, and I appreciate it, and I know the same is true for a lot of boxers. So I appreciate the time today and talking a little with us today about boxing today, Keith. Appreciate it as always.
Thank you, Jake. You know I appreciate it very, very much. Talk to you.
All right, Keith Boggs again from the Indiana Gold Gloves. Back in the day when I was at the cigar store, he'd come in there and we'd sit there, and he was always championing the sport. And Jimmy, like we talked about, there is an element of nostalgia of like old school, just dark armory and lights on a ring and two guys boxing. It's just cool, right? It's just a cool sport.
It's a special aspect of a older time in this country's sports history, and you'll give it credit. It is still stuck around and stayed relevant, and it's up there in terms of like older sports like that. I liken it to horse racing to some extent, of being those type of turn of the century sports that really captivated an entire generation. And Keith's right on a lot of different points, especially how great Golden Glove is for the community and what it does for everybody to give structure and purpose. And it's awesome to be able to be a part of that. But at the national scale, he's also right that they have been at a loss the last 10, 15 years or so for a high-flying, charismatic, voice of the sport or face of the sport, for lack of a better term. Whereas if you turn on a UFC event on any given Saturday or Sunday, you're going to have those type of personalities at a high level, both inside and outside of, in that case, the octagon, but on the boxing sense, the ring. I hope the sport continues to have this rejuvenation, like he mentions, because it's one of the oldest aspects of sport itself, and it's better, I think, from a sense of country. You mentioned it with the Olympics being right here on our doorstep, to have representation of the United States still being a power within that realm of a yesteryear sport, if you will.
We have a Game 5 tonight, correct?
There is a Game 5 tonight.
So that will mean that there are probably, inevitably, some Jimmy's plays of the day, and we will get to those next.
Circle City Whiskey Company seeks out great barrel.
Today's plays of the day, a lot going on, but first, we take a trip across the pond. Euro 2024 group play still ongoing. One match still to go today. That takes place at 3 o'clock between Austria and France. Allez les Bleus will take the France national team to win on the money line. Minus
Is that why you're wearing that
175.
shirt?
That is why I'm wearing the French national team jersey, and I'm a sucker for pinstripes. So
What'd you say? Allez what?
Allez les Bleus. It means go Blues. We'll also take Kylian Mbappe, their star goal scorer, to find the back of the net.
Kylian Mbappe.
In the
here in England.
to So your French or your English actors moved to France for the proceedings?
Oui.
That's better. In Game 5 of the NBA Finals, we'll lay the 6.5 on the Boston Celtics. I expect them to take care of business with ease tonight against the Dallas Mavericks. However, I will take Kyrie Irving of the Dallas Mavericks over 23.5 total points. Eddie, any plays for you?
No, sir.
No plays for Eddie Garrison. Those are your plays of the day.
Have we checked the baseball standings lately?
Can we stop?
Can we continue? Just give a brief
We just
little
checked
summary?
them last Thursday. They're not changing much.
I don't know.
Brewers took 3 over the Reds, and I'm not happy about it.
Now, why are you not happy about just because you're a Reds fan, right? You've totally given up on your Marlins, right?
Well, I never got into the Marlins, to be fair, but
Enough to make a selection for them, though. I mean,
sure.
all right.
Because David Bell just doing David Bell things again, and it's just they won't go anywhere with him as the manager.
The Reds in their last 10, 6-4. The Marlins in their last 10, 2-8.
Brewers 2 games behind the Cleveland Guardians in our race for the 6-pack between Jimmy and myself.
It's going to be a fun summer ongoing. Looking forward to it.
On Saturday, I'm going to be in Northern California for IndyCar, and I was super excited because I thought that the A's are at home. And I was going to go by myself to the A's game because is this their last year in Oakland?
Yeah, I think they're moving to Sacramento next year
Is it
temporarily.
I mean, it keeps moving around,
Yeah.
right?
And then the Las Vegas.
I looked it
adventure at
up.
some
Their
point.
last game, there were 9,000 people there. And I'm like, it'd be kind of cool if I could say that within 2 weeks I went to a game both to see the Oakland A's and the Chicago White Sox in person, and the combined attendance of those 2 games that I've attended maybe would be 10,000, right?
Yeah.
But
Is the
A's,
NFL counting that?
What's
by the
that?
way? Is the NFL counting that, by the way?
According to the NFL, by the way, at the A's game, 172,000 people. The A's game on Saturday that I was going to go to, I was super excited, and then I realized businessman special. Although not businessman special if it's a weekend, but 1 o'clock start, so I can't make it.
Oh, man.
So I'm out of luck there, which is kind of a bummer, right?
Well, considering they're
I kind of like the A's.
Yeah, I mean they're a lovable team, and if the city of Oakland in general has gone through a very tough time with sports franchises.
I just think
as of late.
the green color and the logo.
It's a
just kinda
throwback.
cool.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's kinda cool.
Not gonna hear an argument from either.
J&V has walked into the vicinity here.
What's happening over here to my left?
What do you mean by that?
A big gamecock on somebody's
There
shirt
it is.
right here, man.
There it is.
What's this big old crank up here?
That's the first thing I said.
I'm gonna cash
Is
my
that
bet,
like
please. Who do I take
Lecoq
that to?
Sportif?
That's what I thought, actually.
That's actually what it was.
Are you
believe it or not.
perpetrating like you're talking on a car phone right now?
Was trying to.
Isn't that girls ain't nothing but trouble? Lecoq Sportif
That's
reference?
the French national team kit.
It is indeed.
Is it?
Yeah.
I don't mind a rooster. Roosters are all right.
They're okay.
Yeah, that's kind of weird though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Roosters are well, they're kind of cocky, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
That's what I kind of like about them, right?
I like the pinstripes.
Do you?
Always a big fan of pinstripes.
Wow. Okay.
Are you a pinstripe guy? Do you like pinstripes? No.
Yeah, I never thought about it too much.
Did you like the pinstripe Pacer jerseys?
I love the
Jimmy?
pinstripe Pacer
Did ya?
jerseys. Yes.
I didn't like those.
What are we
John, what's
talking
on the big
about today?
program today?
We're going to do James Boyd. I think we got to do what you guys talked to Bosso earlier. So I talked to Bosso this morning, made fun of him a little bit, so we're going to bring him on here.
Okay.
And ask him what he's trying to build here.
They got 4,500 seat arena, right?
Yeah, 4,500. So we got that. You got that one in Fishers. You got a lot of places. They're going to host the Horizon League tournament still inside once that gets built.
That's a good question.
I wonder if that'd be further down. That's probably too far down the road even to think about.
How was the Italian Fest?
It was good. I gave all the tickets away that I got from Travis Martindale and his lovely wife, Norma. I gave them away to everybody at the table, Paul and the gang, to drink. I didn't want to go stand in line. It was too hot.
It was a little warm.
And a little sweaty.
Did you get one of the toasted raviolis or the
didn't
meatballs?
get anything. No.
Neither one?
No. I stopped at Kroger and got a 3-day-old tuna sandwich for $2.50.
I'm trying to think of the song. We were driving around Saturday, and Shannon was mad at you because she didn't like one of the songs on the Takeover.
Uh-oh. What was that then? Let me know.
I got to think of which song. Well, you
was
had
it a non-rocker?
You did Sounds of the 70s. It was. Did you do one of them that you later mentioned it was a yacht rock song?
Yeah. Was it the Pure Prairie League? Let Me Love You Tonight. That one. Pure Prairie League. Let me love
I'm trying to think of which
Vince
one
Gill,
it was.
I believe, sings that. He was in Pure Prairie League back then.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of which one it was, but I'll think of it as soon as we get off
tonight. A little yacht rock, maybe.
All right.
Did she like a Tribe Called Quest?
She didn't hear the Tribe. No, I take that back. It was right after Tribe Called Quest.
Check the Rhyme, I think, was that. Here's one you guys can all listen to on your way home, and I decided this was the worst song of the 1970s. I think his name is David Gates, and the song is called Run, Joey, Run.
Oh, that's a great song.
1975.
Run. Daddy, please don't. It wasn't his fault. He means so much to me.
Only in the 1970s can your song go all the way to top 5 status, being about the dad accidentally shooting his daughter while trying to shoot her boyfriend.
Do you remember? Yes. Do you remember the last
domestic violence?
The last
number
word
5 this
the
week.
last word of the song. Daddy, please don't. We're gonna get married.
See,
that
I
cute
think
fella?
it would have been better though had it said.
It does sound like cute fella.
We're having a baby. That'd have been even worse.
Do you ever play? Have you ever played Cassius Clay?
No.
This here's the story of. Help me out, John. This here's the story of Cassius Clay, who changed his name to Muhammad Ali.
Yeah, I have not. That has not been requested yet.
I'm trying to think of the chorus. Now it's like
I'm like Run, Joey, Run. Can you imagine? Casey
Yeah, you
Kasem
got Run, Joey,
talking
Run
that
stuck in my
number 5 this week. It's a song
I gotta
about
come off
domestic
this off
violence.
I gotta do this off a story about a dog. Get him on the phone. All right, John's up next.
Yeah,
By
buddy.
tomorrow, I'll think of what I'm talking about with the Cassius Clay song. And we'll be back with you. Thanks for listening to Query & Company.
The Wake Up Call with KB and Andy.